Let's begin today with reading some of the translations from the Sri Brahma Samhita. We read these repeatedly, just like when one grinds spices, after a while the flavor starts to come out. And we'll discuss some of the verses. For a long time, many years, we've read all the verses and then chanted the Sanskrit prayers. But for a few weeks, I wanted to go into some of the verses a little more deeply. And it relates to the topic today also about the power of the holy name and the Gayatri mantras, because that's part of the Brahma Samhita. And that is, there's a discussion of the Gayatri and how it delivered Lord Brahma. And it's of interest to us also because we're lined up, or at least putting ourselves in a position so that we can receive that same sound vibration that Brahma received as he passed it down. And we'll learn today what are the requirements for receiving that sound vibration in such a way that one can be linked with Krishna. We are linked with Krishna, but our relationship has been obscured by the coverings of Maya. And all those can be removed, and our eternal relationship with Krishna revived through the power of sound. Anavriti Shabdat. The Vedanta Sutra says, Anavriti Shabdat, Anavriti Shabdat. That by hearing this sound, one does not come back. By hearing this sound, one does not come back to this temporary material world. So, the Srimad Bhagavatam also we know is an explanation of the Gayatri mantra, which we'll hear today is a manifestation of the flute song of Sri Krishna. Text 1. Krishna, who is known as Govinda, is the supreme Godhead. He has an eternal, blissful, spiritual body. He is the origin of all. He has no other origin, and he is the prime cause of all causes. The spiritual place of transcendental pastimes of Krishna is portrayed in the second verse. The super excellent station of Krishna, which is known as Gokula, has thousands of petals and a corolla like that of a lotus sprouted from a part of his infinitary aspect. The world of leaves being the actual abode of Krishna. The whirl of that, page 6, the whirl of that transcendental lotus is the realm wherein dwells Krishna. It is a hexagonal figure, the abode of the indwelling, predominated and predominating aspect of the Absolute. Like a diamond, the central supporting figure of self-luminous Krishna stands as the transcendental source of all potencies. The holy name, consisting of 18 transcendental letters, is manifested in a hexagonal figure with sixfold divisions. The whirl of that eternal realm, Gokula, is the hexagonal abode of Krishna. Its petals are the abodes of gopis, who are part and parcel of Krishna, to whom they are most lovingly devoted and are similar in essence. The petals shine beautifully like so many walls. The extended leaves of that lotus are the garden-like dham, that is the spiritual abode of Sri Radhika, the most beloved of Krishna. The surrounding external plane of Gokula is described in this verse. There is a mysterious quadrangular place named Shwetadweep surrounding the outskirts of Gokula. Shwetadweep is divided into 4 parts on all sides. The abode of Vasudeva, Sankarshana, Pradyumna, and Aniruddha are separately located in each of these 4 parts. These four divided abodes are enveloped by the fourfold human requirements such as piety, wealth, passion, and liberation, as also by the four Vedas, namely Rig, Sama, Yajur, and Atharva, which deal with the mantra and which are the basis of achievements of the fourfold mundane requirements. 10 tridents are fixed in the 10 directions, including the zenith and nadir. The 8 directions are decorated with 8 jewels of Mahapadma, Padma, Shankha, Makara, Kachapa, Mukunda, Kunda, and Nila. There are 10 protectors, Dikpalas, of the 10 directions in the form of mantra, the associates of the hues of blue, yellow, red, and white, and the extraordinary potencies bearing the names of Bimala, etc., shine on all sides.
The Lord of Gokul is the transcendental supreme Godhead, the own self of eternal ecstasies. He is the superior of all superiors and is busily engaged in the enjoyments of the transcendental realm and has no association with his mundane potency. Krishna never consorts with his illusory energy. Still, her connection is not entirely cut off from the absolute truth. When he intends to create the material world, the amorous pastime, in which he engages by consorting with his own spiritual chit potency Rama, by casting his glance at the deluding energy in the shape of sending his time energy, is an auxiliary activity. The secondary process of association with Maya is described. Rama Devi, the spiritual chit potency, beloved consort of the Supreme Lord, is the regulatrix of all entities. The divine plenary portion of Krishna creates the mundane world. At creation there appears a divine halo of the nature of his own subjective portion, Swamsha. This halo is divine Shambhu, the masculine symbol or manifested emblem of the Supreme Lord. This halo is the dim twilight reflection of the supreme eternal effulgence. This masculine symbol is the subjective portion of divinity who functions as progenitor of the mundane world, subject to the supreme regulatrix Niyati. The conceiving potency in regard to mundane creation makes her appearance out of the supreme regulatrix. She is Maya, the limited, non-absolute apara potency, the symbol of mundane feminine productivity. The intercourse of these two brings forth the faculty of perverted cognition, the reflection of the seed of the procreative desire of the Supreme Lord. All offspring of the consort of the great Lord Maheshwar of this mundane world are of the nature of the embodiment of the mundane, masculine and feminine generative organs. The person embodying the material causal principle, namely the great Lord of this mundane world, Maheshwar, Shambhu, in the form of the male generating organ, is joined to his female consort, the limited energy Maya, as the efficient causal principle. The Lord of the world, Mahavishnu, is manifest in him by his subjective portion in the form of his glance.
The Lord of the mundane world, Mahavishnu, possesses thousands of heads, eyes, hands. He is the source of thousands of avatars in his thousands of subjective portions. He is the creator of thousands of individual souls. The same Mahavishnu is spoken of by the name of Narayan in this mundane world. From that eternal person has sprung the vast expanse of water of the spiritual causal ocean. The subjective portion of Sankarshan, who abides in Paravyoma, the above Supreme Purusha with thousands of subjective portions, reposes in the state of divine sleep, Yoga Nidra, in the waters of the spiritual causal ocean. The spiritual seeds of Sankarshan, existing in the pores of skin of Mahavishnu, are born as so many golden sperms. These sperms are covered with 5 great elements. The same Mahavishnu entered into each universe as his own separate subjective portions. The divided portions that entered into each universe are possessed of his majestic extension, that is, they are the eternal universal soul Mahavishnu, possessing thousands of heads. The same Mahavishnu created Vishnu from his left limb, Brahma, the first progenitor of beings, from his right limb, and from the space between his 2 eyebrows, Shambhu, the divine masculine manifested halo.
So far, we started with the statement that Krishna is the supreme cause of all causes. And then there's a description of the Yogapit, or the divine place where Krishna stands with his consort. And this is described as a hexagonal abode. There's what's called the yantra, on which they stand, and it's described as a lotus petal. And this is the source of everything. And then we expand outward to see how the material world is manifest by the glance of Mahavishnu, and how that glance is personified in the form of Shambhu. And there's the form of perverted cognition in the material world. That is, there's a procreative desire, or as we described last year, there's the Adi Ras, or the love of the spiritual world is manifested in the material world in a perverted way. And then we're hearing about how Mahavishnu is manifesting the universes from the pores of his body, and how he then enters into the universes, each individual universe is Garbhadakshay Vishnu, and then he enters into the hearts and all the atoms as the Kshirodakshay Vishnu. So he's, in his divine manifestation, present everywhere, even in the material world. So we're getting this overview. This is Sambandha Gyan. We're getting an orientation. Where is Krishna? Where's the source? Who is the source of everything? And how the material world comes to be, and what is the nature of the material world, and so on. So this is giving us a clear understanding of, or should give us a clear understanding of where we are in this material world and what its nature is.
The function of Shambhu in relation to Jivas is that this universal enshrining the mundane egotistic principle has originated from Shambhu. Thereupon, the same great personal Godhead, assuming the threefold form of Vishnu, Prajapati and Shambhu, entering into the mundane universe, plays the pastime of preservation, creation and destruction of this world. This pastime is contained in the mundane world. Hence, it being perverted, the Supreme Lord, identical with Mahavishnu, prefers to consort with Goddess Yoganidra, the constituent of his own spiritual Chit potency, full of the ecstatic trance of eternal bliss, or pertaining to his own divine personality. When Vishnu, lying in the ocean of milk, wills to create this universe, a golden lotus springs from his navel pit. The golden lotus with its stem is the abode of Brahma, representing Brahmalok or Satyalok. Before the conglomeration, the primary elements in their nascent state remained originally separate entities. Non-application of the conglomerating process is the cause of their separate existence. Divine Mahavishnu, primal Godhead, through association with his own spiritual Chit potency, moved Maya, and by the application of the conglomerating principle, created those different entities in their state of cooperation. And after that, he himself concerted with Yoganidra by way of his eternal dalliance with his spiritual Chit potency. By conglomerating all those separate entities, he manifested the innumerable mundane universes and himself entered into the inmost recess of every extended conglomerate, Virad Vigraha. At that time, those jivas who had lain dormant during cataclysm were awakened.
The same jiva is eternal, and is for eternity and without a beginning joined to the Supreme Lord by the tie of an eternal kinship. He is transcendental spiritual potency. The divine lotus, which springs from the navel pit of Vishnu, is in every way related by the spiritual tie with all souls, and is the origin of four-faced Brahma versed in the four Vedas. On coming out of the lotus, Brahma, being guided by the divine potency, turned his mind to the act of creation under the impulse of previous impressions, but he could see nothing but darkness in every direction. Then the goddess of learning, Saraswati, the divine consort of the Supreme Lord, said thus to Brahma, who saw nothing but gloom in all directions. O Brahma, this mantra, namely, Kling Krishnaya Govindaya Gopi Jana Vallabhaya Swaha, will assuredly fulfill your heart's desire. O Brahma, do thou practice spiritual association by means of this mantra, then all your desires will be fulfilled.
Brahma, being desirous of satisfying Govinda, practiced the cultural acts of for Krishna in Golok, Lord of Shwetadeep, for a long time. His meditation ran thus: there exists a divine lotus of 1,000 petals, augmented by millions of filaments, in the transcendental land of Goloka. On its world there exists a great divine throne on which is seated Sri Krishna, the form of eternal effulgence of transcendental bliss, playing on his divine flute resonant with the divine sound. With his lotus mouth, he is worshipped by his amorous milkmaids with their respective subjective portions and extensions, and also by his external energy, who stays outside, embodying all mundane qualities. Then Gayatri, mother of the Vedas, being made manifest, that is imparted, by the divine sound of the flute of Sri Krishna, entered into the lotus mouth of Brahma, born from himself, through his 8 ear holes. The lotus-born Brahma, having received the Gayatri, sprung from the flute song of Sri Krishna, attained the status of the twice-born, having been initiated by the supreme primal preceptor, Godhead himself. Enlightened by the recollection of that Gayatri, embodying the 3 Vedas, Brahma became acquainted with the expanse of the ocean of truth. Then he worshipped Sri Krishna, the essence of all Vedas, with his hymn. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, the first progenitor, who is tending the cows, yielding all desires, in abodes built with the spiritual gems, surrounded by millions of purpose trees, always served with great reverence and affection by hundreds of thousands of Lakshmis or Gopis. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, who is adept in playing on his flute with blooming eyes like lotus petal, with head bedecked with peacock's feather, with the figure of beauty tinged with the hue of blue clouds, and his unique loveliness charming millions of cupids.
I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, round whose neck is swinging a garland of flowers, beautified with the moon locket, whose 2 hands are adorned with the flute and jeweled ornaments, who always revels in pastime of love, whose graceful 3-fold bending form of Shyam Sundar is eternally manifest. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, whose transcendental form is full of bliss, truth, substantiality, and is thus full of the most dazzling splendor. Each of the limbs of that transcendental figure possesses in himself the full-fledged function of all the organs, and eternally sees, maintains, and manifests the infinite universes, both spiritual and mundane. I worship Govind, the primeval Lord, who is inaccessible to the Vedas, but obtainable by pure unalloyed devotion of the soul, who is without a second, who is not subject to decay, is without a beginning, whose form is endless, who is the beginning and the eternal Purush, yet he is a person possessing the beauty of blooming youth. I worship Govind, the primeval Lord, only the tip of the toe of whose lotus feet is approached by the yogis who aspire after the transcendental and betake themselves to pranayam by drilling the respiration, or by the jnanis who try to find out the non-differentiated Brahman by the process of elimination of the mundane, extending over thousands of millions of years. He is an undifferentiated entity, as there is no distinction between potency and the possessor thereof. In his work of creation of millions of worlds, his potency remains inseparable. All the universes exist in him, and he is present in his fullness in every one of the atoms that are scattered throughout the universe, at one and the same time. Such is the primeval Lord whom I adore.
We're going to discuss the verses up till now a little bit. And before we do, we're going to recite the Mangalacharna prayers, so you can look in your songbook if you don't know them, on starting on page number 10. Om Agnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunilitam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manopishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kada Mahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Sri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatham Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Sadvatutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhan Vitamscha Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Tinamine Shri Varshabhana Videvi Dayataya Kripabdaye Krishna Sambandha Vijnana Dayane Pravave Namaha Madhuryo Jwala Premadya Shri Rupanuga Bhaktida Shri Gaura Karuna Shakti Vigrahaya Namostute Namaste Gauravani Shri Murtaye Dinatarine Rupanuga Virudhapa Siddhanta Dvanta Harine Namo Gaura Kishoraya Sakshad Vairagya Murtaye Vipralambara Sambodhe Padambujayate Namaha Namo Divinodaya Sakchidananda Namine Gaura Shakti Swarupaya Rupanuga Varayate Gaura Virabhava Bhomestvam Nirdesa Sajjana Priya Vaishnava Sarvabhoma Shri Jagannathayate Namaha Pancha Kalpatarubhascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Namo Mahavananyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gaura-tvishe Namaha Pancha Tattvatmakam Krishnam Bhakta Rupa Swarupakam Bhaktavataram Bhaktakyam Namami Bhakta Shaktikam He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Jayatam Surato Pangor Mama-manda Matirgati Matsarva Swapadambojo Radha Madana Mohano Divya Vrindaranya Kalpadrumatha Srimad Ratnankara Singhasanasto Srimad Radha Shila Govinda Devo Preshtalibhi Sevyamano Smarami Srimad Rasarasarambi Vamshi Bhatatastitaha Karshan Venu Swaner Gopir Gopinatha Shriyestunaha Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bo. For those of you who have joined online this morning and you'd like to text in a question or a comment, the text in number is 650-245-7018. That's 650-245-7018. 650-245-7018 for texting questions or comments. So now we started reading the verses past 29, starting with 29, where Lord Brahma is describing the spiritual world, so he can see it directly himself. And this requires divine eyes to see Krishna, because he's in the superior position, and the inferior can only see the superior if he decides to reveal himself. So the process is descending knowledge, and revelation comes when Krishna allows us to see him. The Shastra says, Tashi Krishna namari na bhaved grayam indraye sevamukhi jivado swayam eva spuratyada. That nobody can understand Krishna by the blunt material senses. And that includes the mind, even if the mind or the intellect is highly developed, as is Brahma's intellect. He or anyone else cannot understand Krishna. So devotion and, or I should say revelation, comes under a completely different set of circumstances than the empiric process or the empiric practitioners are used to gathering knowledge. And some of those conditions are explained in the Bhagavad Gita by Lord Krishna in the 13th chapter, beginning with verse 8, where he says, Amanitvam, Adambitvam, Ahimsa, Shantir, Arjavam. And so he starts by saying humility, pridelessness, nonviolence, simplicity, approaching a bona fide spiritual master. And he goes through 20 different qualities which give one the proper mentality to understand the truth, understand Krishna. And in the process of creation, Brahma is born, as we just heard, from the lotus that comes from the navel of Garbhodakshai Vishnu. And now that he's born on the lotus stem, he's in a state of ignorance. And this is the plight of the conditioned soul. After taking rebirth in the material world, we start over again in complete ignorance. In fact, in the Mangalacharana verses we just recited, beginning with Om Ajnana Timidandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Dena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha, the devotee is praying that I was born in the darkness of ignorance, but my eyes were opened with the Shalakaya, or an instrument. It's like a doctor would use to open somebody's eyes. And this comes from an outside source. So we're admitting the fact, and we're appreciating that my eyes have been opened, and they're being opened by somebody, my guru. And the guru is a representative of Krishna. And so we require Krishna's help in order to see when we come to this world. So Brahma, who's described as having 4 heads, at least in our universe. In other universes which are larger, he has more heads, but those are larger universes. The manager has to have at least 4 heads. because you have to think of so many things at a time. And that's what Brahma is, a manager, really. You have to consider all different kinds of different options simultaneously. And even with that great capacity for management and creation, Brahma is completely in ignorance about his identity and about his purpose from the very beginning. So we're hearing about this because it's instructive for us, that we're born into the world in ignorance and we require Krishna's help. So how to get it? And Brahma shows the example. It's the head of our sampradaya. We're in the Brahma Madhva Gaudiya sampradaya. It means that we follow a line that comes down from Krishna through his great devotees, and we're accepting knowledge through that line. And it has the same potency, just as when you connect a copper wire to an electrical source. It doesn't matter how far around the world it goes. As long as it's connected, you'll get the charge. So Brahma is described in the Srimad Bhagavatam. And I'm going to read a section of this because we can hear Prabhupada's purport to it in the Srimad Bhagavatam. Is that okay? Kurnath Prabhu? Okay. So, in Bhagavatam 3:8, 16 through 21. Which is called Manifestation of Brahma from Garbhodakshay Vishnu. This is verse 3:8, 16. Brahma, born out of the lotus flower, could not see the world, although he was situated in the whorl. Brahma, born out of the lotus flower, could not see the world, although he was situated in the whorl. The whorl means the whorl of the lotus flower. He therefore circumambulated all of space, and while moving his eyes in all directions, he achieved 4 heads in terms of the 4 directions. Text 17, Lord Brahma, situated in that lotus, could not perfectly understand the creation, the lotus, or himself. At the end of the millennium, the air of devastation began to move the water and the lotus in great circular waves. Srila Prabhupada's purport. Lord Brahma was perplexed about his creation, the lotus and the world, even though he tried to understand them for 1 millennium, which is beyond calculation in the solar years of human beings. No one, therefore, can know the mystery of the creation and cosmic manifestation simply by mental speculation. The human being is so limited in his capacity that without the help of the Supreme, he can hardly understand the mystery of the will of the Lord in terms of creation, continuance, and destruction. 18. Lord Brahma, in his ignorance, contemplated, who am I that am situated on the top of this lotus? Wherefrom has it sprouted? There must be something downwards, and that from which this lotus has grown must be within the water. Purport. The subject matter of the speculations of Brahma in the beginning regarding the creation of the cosmic manifestation is still a subject matter for mental speculators. The most intelligent man is he who tries to find the cause of his personal existence and that of the whole cosmic creation, and thus tries to find the ultimate cause. If his attempt is properly executed with penances and perseverance, it is sure to be crowned with success. What are the 2 elements necessary?
Penances and perseverance.
Penances and perseverance. That's a good formula. We'll keep that. Penances and perseverance. 19. Lord Brahma, thus contemplating, entered the water through the channel of the stem of the lotus. But in spite of entering the stem and going nearer to the navel of Vishnu, he could not trace out the root. Purport. By dint of one's personal endeavor, One may go nearer to the Lord, but without the Lord's mercy, one cannot reach the ultimate point. Such understanding of the Lord is possible only by devotional service, as confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 1855. Bhaktyamam abhijanati yavanyaschasmi tatvataha. Text number 20. O Vidura, while searching in that way about his existence, Brahma reached his ultimate time, which is the eternal wheel in the hand of Vishnu, and which generates fear in the mind of the living entity, like the fear of death. 21. Thereafter, being unable to achieve the desired destination, he retired from such searching and came back again to the top of the lotus. Thus, controlling all objectives, he concentrated his mind on the Supreme Lord. Purport. Samadhi involves concentrating the mind upon the supreme cause of all, even if one is unaware of whether his actual nature is personal, impersonal, or localized. Do you find that interesting? I'll read it again. Samadhi involves concentrating the mind on the supreme cause of all, even if one is unaware of whether his actual nature is personal, impersonal, or localized. Concentration of the mind on the Supreme is certainly a form of devotional service. To cease from personal sense endeavors and to concentrate on the Supreme Cause is a sign of self-surrender. And when self-surrender is present, that is a sure sign of devotional service. Each and every living entity needs to engage in devotional service to the Lord if he wishes to understand the ultimate cause of his existence. Very instructive here, because it's in the first sentence, Prabhupada is indicating that one may not know the nature of the Lord, whether he's personal, impersonal, or something else. However, he's describing samadhi. So what is that kind of samadhi when one doesn't know who the Lord is? Let's hear. Discussion.
Yeah, I was thinking about that this morning, how in the second chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna doesn't talk a lot about himself. He talks about Buddhi Yoga and having one's intelligence fixed, and Srila Prabhupada translates Buddhi Yoga as devotional service and explains that one's intelligence won't really be fixed unless it's fixed in Krishna consciousness. But I was thinking about that this morning. And the last couple of years in Mayapur, Bhanu Swami gave classes about like the overall Srimad Bhagavatam and its overall position within all the Vedic literature, and how so much of it doesn't seem to be like directly, like it's describing devotional service, but it's describing it within this whole, sort of context of all spiritual activities and even fruitive activities of human beings, and it's describing the whole history of the universe and how it's all situated. So anyway, the samadhi, there can be samadhi of the Astanga yogis whose goal is Paramatma and they don't have realization of Bhagavan, and there can be even Brahmavadis who are fixed in meditation on the impersonal. Krishna describes that in the beginning of the 12th chapter, while he's saying that it's inferior to devotional service and it's harder and takes a long time, that at last those who meditate on the unmanifested will come to him.
Okay, any other points? What is that samadhi? It's probably describing before you even know who the Supreme Lord is. And do you have any other examples of that, Pratibha?
As soon as I heard it, Radhanath Swami's journey back home came to my mind, and the quote, or he had mentioned that when he was looking for God, he was reading many scriptures and all that, and he would sit on the banks or in the caves, banks of the river or caves, and kind of pray. So I think when you want to figure out your relationship with God, you just ask Him, pray for Him for guidance and direction, because I guess that's what He was doing. So that's my understanding.
Nice. Other points? Agree, disagree? Additional examples?
Yeah, I cannot. I understand the point, but I think that for me, from whenever I understood a little, I always thought that God is in the personal form, so I cannot really visualize this situation as when a person does not know what is the actual form and still meditates.
Can you get me Gajendra, please? So, what about Gajendra? Interesting case. Gajendra was a king in his previous life, and he was cursed by a sage. That seems to happen a lot. That he took birth as an elephant because he had offended a sage, and the sage said, "You're so stupid, you should be a stupid elephant in your next life." So the king took birth as an elephant, Gajendra. And as Gajendra, he got into trouble because he was in a lake taking a bath with his family, and there he was assailed by a crocodile who captured him by biting his leg. And then he began offering prayers to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And the prayers came to him spontaneously because in his previous life he had recited these prayers every day. And at the point he began reciting the prayers, he was unaware of who the Supreme was. Meanwhile, the demigods who also heard the prayers were listening to hear if they were for them. And they made the judgment that these are not for us. But they were for Lord Narayan, Lord Vishnu, who heard them and then came and rescued Gajendra. So there's a case here to be made that Gajendra was in this kind of samadhi that Prabhupada is describing here, that samadhi involves concentrating the mind upon the supreme cause of all causes, even if one is unaware of whether his actual nature is personal, impersonal, or localized. Because we have an eternal relationship with Krishna. When it's obscured, we may not have specific information about the relationship or about who Krishna is exactly, but we do have the propensity to pray. In fact, we find that there's a statement that there are no atheists in foxholes. This is the situation on a battlefield. A foxhole is what soldiers used to, and probably still do, the infantry have to dig out some place on the earth and hide in there so they wouldn't get hit by shrapnel and flying bullets. And in the midst of the battle, they would hunker down in those holes, and death would seem imminent. And even if someone was a proclaimed atheist, once they're in that hole and they realize that death could come at any second, which it can at any second anyway, but once they realize it, then this saying came about because people would start praying, and someone might say, "Hey, wait a minute, you're an atheist." It's like, not anymore. I'm in samadhi. I'm praying to God. So there's a primal instinct within the soul to pray to God because we're part and parcel of God. And I'm bringing this out because oftentimes a person may come to a process of religious practice and then forget why he or she came in the first place and begin practicing by rote or to collect information or to impress others and so forth. There may be so many motivations. But Brahma, inspired by this natural desire to know himself, to know God, without knowing anything in the beginning, is sincerely reaching out with his heart and mind to try to find God. And that's the most important aspect of our spiritual practice, that we maintain that sincere endeavor to reach Krishna. And start over every day that I'm a fool. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu told this to Prakashananda Saraswati when asked by Prakashananda, why don't you study Vedanta like other sannyasis? Why are you dancing and singing like a sentimentalist? Mahaprabhu said, my spiritual master said, I'm murkha, I'm a fool. I can't understand anything. Therefore, he said, just chant Hare Krishna. And Prabhupada explains in that context that this is the progressive situation for spiritual life, that one should keep oneself in that position constantly, that I am murkha, I'm a fool, I don't know anything. I'm simply dependent on my spiritual master and on Krishna's mercy, whatever they can give. Giriraj Maharaj tells a story about, actually it was a godbrother of Giriraj Maharaj's who told me that he had asked him one time, he said, you got so much mercy from Prabhupada, you spent time with him in India, got so much personal instruction, and so forth. He said, how do you account for that? And Giriraj Maharaj said, I'm just a mercy case. And one should consider oneself a mercy case. If you're not a mercy case, then you don't deserve anything. Just like if someone needs food stamps, you have to show that you don't have any money. Otherwise, they're not going to give them to you. In fact, unless you're indigent, unless you don't have anything, you don't get medical insurance and you don't get any help from the government. They look and say, you're all right. You already have something. Why should we help you? But if you can go and prove, look, I'm broke. I don't have anything. I don't have any means whatsoever. Then you get all kinds of help. In fact, you get great medical insurance if you don't have any money. Most people, anyway, I won't go into it. Otherwise, you have to pay a lot of money. It's $1,400 a month to buy pucka medical insurance if you're not in a big corporation or something like that. So one should empty oneself out by considering that I'm a fool, I don't know anything, I'm murkha. And from that position, amanit vam, adambit vam, it means humility and pridelessness. I don't have anything. And Krishna says in the opening of the 15th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita that this is the formula for success in spiritual life. Nirmana moha citta sangha dosha adhyatma nitya vrinivritta kama tvanvarva mukta sukha dukkha samjar gachantya muda padamavyayam tat. He begins by saying nirman. Man means this ego that I have something, I am something. And you must be free from that. Nirman. Moha, and then what follows is you become free from illusion, the illusory concept that I'm okay in this world. You're not. You're not okay. You're not stable, and you're not protected. You're completely exposed. Like lawyers talk about exposure all the time. You're really exposed on this one, You're going to take a hit from some direction. Somebody's going to get you. So we're totally exposed in the material world. I may think I'm protected, but I'm not. Deha patra kalatradeshu atmasainyus satsapi. Shukadeva Goswami tells this to Parikshit early on in the Bhagavatam. Deha patra kalatradeshu. That everyone thinks I'm protected by my body, my family, and my bank balance and so forth, but these are fallible soldiers. They will not be able to protect you. So this is a kind of samadhi. This is a cultivation. This is how to chant the holy names. purely. Janmaishvarya Shuta Shribir Edamana Madapuman Naivarhat Yabitatum Vai Twam Akinchana Gocharam. Queen Kunti says that in order to attain this kind of samadhi, this sincere beseeching of Krishna through his names and through devotional service, one must be free from the idea that I have anything. Some people think, I have a high birth. Yeah, I'm better off because I was born in a higher family, but there's not a qualification for approaching Krishna. You'll see even the lowest of people can approach Krishna if they have sincere feeling, but somebody who has a very high birth and they consider this is my qualification, they become disqualified. Aishvarya, Shruta, Shri, these are descriptions of all the kinds of opulences I may acquire through my karma. And so we have to renounce all those and consider that I'm starting over. Okay, more comments or questions? And if you want to text in a question or comment, the number is 650-245-7018. Mayapur.
So, Prabhuji, this verse from Srimad Bhagavatam that we just read, so sometimes I always had a question, especially doing Bhakti Shastra with Srivas Prabhu, about the different paths. And, so here it says that meditation is part of devotional service. And I also, let me frame my question perfectly. So, how do we, why is, in fact, even that question coming up, that if a person is meditating on the Supreme Lord, maybe in form of chanting, or maybe, just by closing his eyes, as far as, is meditating on the Supreme Lord, why is it considered different from meditation? I mean, bhakti. I mean, there's one dhyana yoga.
It's not considered different.
Okay.
Meditation is part of bhakti. Give me the verse from the seventh canto of Prahlad Maharaj's prayers, which is Shravanam Kirtanam Vishnu Smaranam Padasevanam Archanam Vandanam Dasyam Sakyam Atma Nivedanam. And also hand me a nectar of instruction, please. So the process of meditation is a natural outgrowth of hearing and chanting. It's progressive. So this is described in the nectar of instruction. There's a progression through which we come to the stage of meditating on Krishna's pastimes and his form and his qualities. And Rupa Goswami first says, Syat Krishna Nama Charitari Sitapta Vidya Pitopatapta Rasanasya Narochikanu Kintvavarad Anudilam Kalusaiva Jushta Svadvikramad Bhavatitad Garamulahantri. In the beginning we chant. We actually use the senses, the tongue and the mind to chant the holy names of the Lord, but it tastes bitter because I'm jaundiced. So there's the jaundice, the affliction I have is called avidya, ignorance. That's what prevents me from tasting anything when I chant. Otherwise, it's undescribably sweet. Then he says, Tanama Rupa Charitari Sukirtananu Smrityo Kramena. Very important word. Kramena Rasana Manasi Niyoja. And Kramena means step by step, by continuing the process of chanting and hearing, that you'll come to be able to remember the Lord. Tanama Rupa Charitari Sukirtananu. Charitari Sukirtananu Smrityo Kramena Rasana Manasi Niyoja. You'll be able to taste the sweetness. Tishtan Vraje Tananuragi. And then you'll come to the position of living in Vrindavan. And now there's a description of the process of smaranam in this famous verse from the Srimad Bhagavatam 7.5.24. Smaranam, after one regularly performs the process of hearing and chanting, and after the core of one's heart is cleansed. See, this is why the acharyas say that we're not qualified for this kind of meditation in the beginning. You can't sit down and meditate because you have a lot of things on your mind and in your heart. As soon as you sit down, you'll be disturbed because there's contamination in the heart. There's activity, there's previous impressions that will keep you from actually fixing your mind on the Lord. So, Smaranam, after one regularly performs the processes of hearing and chanting, and after the core of one's heart is cleansed, Smaranam, remembering, is recommended. In Srimad Bhagavatam 2.111, Shukadeva Goswami tells King Parikshit, Etan nirvidyamananam ichatam akutobhayam yoginam nripanirnitam harirnamanukirtanam. O King, for great yogis who have completely renounced all material connections, for those who desire all material enjoyment, and for those who are self-satisfied by dint of transcendental knowledge, constant chanting of the holy name of the Lord is recommended. According to different relationships with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, there are varieties of nama-anukirtanam, chanting of the holy name, and thus according to different relationships and mellows, there are 5 kinds of remembering. These are as follows. A, conducting research into the worship of a particular form of the Lord. 2, concentrating the mind on one subject and withdrawing the mind's activities of thinking, feeling, and willing from other subjects. C, concentrating upon a particular form of the Lord. This is called meditation. D, concentrating one's mind continuously on the form of the Lord. This is called dhruvanusmriti, or perfect meditation. And E, awakening a likening for concentration upon a particular form. This is called samadhi, or trance. Mental concentration upon particular pastimes of the Lord in particular circumstances is also called remembrance. Therefore, samadhi trance can be possible in 5 different ways in terms of one's relationship. Specifically, the trance of devotees on the stage of neutrality is called mental concentration. And in the Nectar of Instruction, Srila Prabhupada quotes Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, and who describes the progressive process that leads to meditation. So he says, in the neophyte stage, one should always engage in hearing Krishna Katha. This is called the Shravana Dasha, the stage of hearing. By constantly hearing the transcendental holy name of Krishna and hearing of his transcendental form, qualities, and pastimes, one can attain to the stage of acceptance called Varna Dasha. When one attains this stage, he becomes attached to the hearing of Krishna Katha. When one is able to chant in ecstasy, he attains the stage of Smaranavastha, the stage of remembering. Recollection, absorption, meditation, constant remember, and trance are the 5 items of progressive Krishna Smarana. At first, remembrance of Krishna may be interrupted at intervals, but later remembrance proceeds uninterrupted. When remembrance is uninterrupted, it becomes concentrated and is called meditation. When meditation expands and becomes constant, it is called anusmriti. By uninterrupted and unceasing anusmriti, one enters the stage of samadhi, or spiritual trance. After smarana dasha, or samadhi, has fully developed, the soul comes to understand his original constitutional position. At that time, he can perfectly and clearly understand his eternal relationship with Krishna. That is called sampati dasha, the perfection of life. So, the process of hearing and chanting naturally leads to the remembrance of Krishna in various stages, thickening stages. Did I answer your question?
Yes, Prabhuji. So just to elaborate on that, then what is the difference, between Dhyana Yoga and Bhakti Yoga as an example? Is it because Dhyana Yoga is when you do not concentrate on Krishna and concentrate on something abstract or void?
Well, first of all, there is no yoga without bhakti. Any process that one professes, if it's not mixed with bhakti, has no potency whatsoever. because ultimately everything comes about by mercy through a descending process. And so to the degree that it's mixed with bhakti, that's the degree that it has efficacy and potency. And to the degree it doesn't, it's simply speculation or a waste of time. So that's one point. And there is a difference, a very technical and specific difference between the chanting of the holy names, which you could call bhakti, and meditation that the yogis do, like the four Kumaras. They engage in a kind of meditation, and there are other great sages who are very much attached to meditation. And the very technical differences are described in the Brihad Bhagavatamrita. In fact, there's a very long chapter that describes the difference between meditation and chanting of the holy names of the Lord. And Sanatana Goswami in his commentaries goes into great details to distinguish the two and to show through Shastra why chanting of the holy names is superior. The context of that is that Gopakumar, who is a cowherd who's on his journey back to Krishna and hasn't come to his perfection yet, had traveled to Tapolok, which is one of the higher planetary systems where great sages live, like the four Kumaras. And there on that Tapolok, the residents would engage in meditation. Their meditation was so powerful that when they would meditate on a particular form of the Lord, their body would actually assume that form, or they would be able to project the form of Krishna. You'd be able to see that particular form being manifest. And they were trying to convince Gopakumar that, this is a superior kind of practice. And Sanatana Goswami shows actually why chanting of the holy names is a superior kind of practice. And we can go into that at some point. I can read that entire section for you in a dedicated class if you'd like to hear the difference. Shraddha.
So, Maharaj, we do use the term mantra meditation.
Uh-huh.
Like when we are doing japa. So isn't that also, chanting of the holy names also a sort of meditation?
Yeah, in general, meditation means to fix one's mind on Krishna. Yeah. If you need to text in a question or a comment, 650-245-7018.
I had a question. This is on text 15 from Brahma Samhita.
I'm running out of room here.
So I'll read the translation. The same Mahavishnu created Vishnu.
Which page is this?
This is page 29.
Okay.
The same Mahavishnu created Vishnu from his left limb, Brahma, the first progenitor of beings, from his right limb, and from the space between his two eyebrows, Shambhu, the divine masculine manifested halo. This seems different from what I know. Brahma comes out from the lotus, which comes out of the navel pit of Garbhodakshai Vishnu. Why is it saying that he comes from Vishnu's left limb?
Well, let's see if we can hear in the purport. The divine Purusha lying in the ocean of milk, the same who is the regulator of all individual souls, is Sri Vishnu. And Hiranyamaya Garbha. In Hiranyagarbha, the seminal principle, the portion of the Supreme Lord, is the prime progenitor, who is different from the four-faced Brahma. This same Hiranyagarbha is the principle of seminal creating energy of every Brahma belonging to each of the infinity of universes. The divine masculine manifested halo, Shambhu, is the plenary manifestation of his prototype, Shambhu, the same as the primary divine masculine generative symbol, Shambhu, whose nature has already been described. Vishnu is the integral subjective portion of Mahavishnu. Hence, he is the great Lord of the other lords. The progenitor Brahma and Shambhu are the dislocated portions of Mahavishnu. Hence, they are gods with delegated functions. His own potency being on the left side of Godhead, Vishnu appears in the left limb of Mahavishnu from the unalloyed essence of his spiritual chit potency. Vishnu, who is God in himself, is the inner guiding oversoul of every individual soul. He is the personality of Godhead described in the Vedas as being of the measure of a thumb. He is the nourisher. The karmis, evolutionists, worship him as Narayan, the Lord of sacrifices, and the yogis desire to merge their identities in him as Paramatma, as the process of their meditative trance. I'll have to look at the commentary on that to see if there's any, specific mention, whether it's figurative or there's some other explanation. Yes.
In the beginning of the purport, Bhaktisiddhanta was saying that Hiranyagarbha is the principle of Lord Brahma, basically, not the specific manifestation of four-faced Brahma who is born on the lotus flower, but the actual seminal principle of the progenitor. And similarly, there's a principle of Shambhu who is not the actual divine manifested masculine halo, but is the underlying principle of because we also hear how Lord Shiva makes his appearance out of the forehead of Lord Brahma in the Srimad Bhagavatam. But we should understand that there's these principles of Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva, or goodness, passion, and ignorance, are eternal principles, and they're not. They're just not, one specific, pastime or living entity. They're more. So he was mentioning that in the very beginning of the purport.
Yeah, I'll read that one sentence again. This same Hiranyagarbha is the principle of seminal creating energy of every Brahma belonging to each of the infinity of universes. The divine masculine manifested halo, masculine manifested halo Shambhu, is the plenary manifestation of his prototype Shambhu, the same as the primary divine masculine generative symbol Shambhu, whose nature has already been described.
So there's a prototype Shiva, and there's a prototype Brahma, and a prototype Vishnu also.
So as we've discussed a basic principle of the importance of inquiry into one's nature, what is the purpose of life, and searching for God, then we heard about how Brahma was in this situation where he was searching for the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And now I'm going to read you something from the Srimad Bhagavatam, from second canto, 9th chapter, text numbers 6 and 7. While thus engaged in thinking in the water, Brahmaji heard twice from nearby 2 syllables joined together. One of the syllables was taken from the 16th and the other from the 21st of the Sparsha alphabets, and both joined to become the wealth of the renounced order of life. Good morning, Kanka. Purport. In Sanskrit language, the consonant alphabets are divided into 2 divisions, namely the Sparsha Varnas and the Lavya Varnas. From Ka to Ma, the letters are known as the Sparsha Varnas, and the 16th of the group is called Ta, whereas the 21st letter is called Pa. So when they are joined together, the word Tapa, or penance, is constructed. This penance is the beauty and wealth of the Brahmanas and the renounced order of life. According to Bhagavat philosophy, every human being is meant simply for this tapa and for no other business, because by penance only can one realize his self. And self-realization, not sense gratification, is the business of human life. This tapa or penance was begun from the very beginning of the creation, and it was first adopted by the Supreme Spiritual Master, Lord Brahma. By tapasya only can one get the profit of human life, and not by a polished civilization of animal life. The animal does not know anything except sense gratification and the jurisdiction of eat, drink, be merry, and enjoy. But the human being is made to undergo tapasya for going back home, back to Godhead. When Lord Brahma was perplexed about how to construct the material manifestations in the universe and went down within the water to find out the means and the source of his lotus seat, he heard the word tapa vibrated twice. Taking the path of tapa is the second birth of the desiring disciple. The word apashrinot is very significant. It is similar to upanayana, or bringing the disciple nearer to the spiritual master for the path of tapa. So Brahmaji was thus initiated by Lord Krishna, and this fact is corroborated by Brahmaji himself in his book, the Brahma Samhita. In the Brahma Samhita, Lord Brahma has sung in every verse, Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. Thus Brahma was initiated by the Krishna mantra by Lord Krishna himself, and thus he became a Vaishnav, or a devotee of the Lord, before he was able to construct the huge universe. It is stated in the Brahma Samhita that Lord Brahma was initiated into the 18-letter Krishna mantra, which is generally accepted by all the devotees of Lord Krishna. We follow the same principle because we belong to the Brahma Sampradaya directly in a disciplic chain, from Brahma to Narada, from Narada to Vyas, from Vyas to Madhva Muni, from Madhva Muni to Madhavendra Puri, and Madhavendra Puri to Ishvara Puri, from Ishvara Puri to Lord Chaitanya, and gradually to His Divine Grace, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, our Divine Master. One who is thus initiated in the disciplic succession is able to achieve the same result or power of creation. Chanting of this holy mantra is the only shelter of the desireless pure devotee of the Lord. Simply by such tapasya or penance, the devotee of the Lord achieves all perfections like Lord Brahma. So there's help. As soon as I make the sincere inquiry, Krishna is there to assist me. This is the purpose of the human life. According to the Vedanta Sutra, Tato Brahma Jignasa. Now that you've come to this position of being in a human body, it's the time to inquire. So become a master asker and ask this question, the great question, what is the purpose of my life? Like Parikshit, he's known as the examiner. The man, his whole life was dedicated to try to find out Krishna. That's what the word Parikshit means. He saw Krishna in the womb. Krishna came and saved him from the weapon of Ashvatthama, the Brahmastra weapon. From then on, he was always inquiring, where's Krishna, looking for Krishna. And when there was a crisis in his life, he used that as the bridge to entirely dedicate himself to inquiring about Krishna. There's a way in which life is so full of other duties that one must perform that practically in one 24-hour stretch, it's hard to squeeze out even a few hours for concentration on the Supreme. Is it not? Or is it just me? There's a way that life comes on so strong, and the mind is so powerful, thinking I have so many duties to do other than inquire and focus my mind on Krishna, that practically in a 24-hour stretch, you have to make a Herculean effort to think of Krishna, to chant the mantra with full concentration, and so on, to take Krishna prasadam and to follow the process of devotional service. So, if one has the great opportunity, as Parikshit did, to drop everything and simply dedicate one's life to full concentration on the Supreme, this is a great boon. But it comes only to the prepared mind. Louis Pasteur once said that great discoveries come only unto the prepared mind. Therefore, one must utilize one's entire life to inquire about Krishna to one's full ability, and then Krishna will give more and more facility throughout one's life to do that. And he spoke the words tapa from the Sanskrit alphabet, and Brahma, being very intelligent, could understand what that meant. He took that instruction and began to perform tapasya. So, discussion, why is it that Prabhupada says in the purport that this tapasya is the wealth of the Brahmins? Shouldn't I try to go as far away from tapasya as possible and live a comfortable life in this world? Wouldn't that make more sense, to try to have air conditioning in every room and to avoid any kind of encounter with misery or inconvenience in this lifetime? I could get a Suburban from that's the name of a car made by General Motors. And it'll be just like driving in my own living room if I have a Suburban. And can I just insulate myself? Isn't that the goal of life? Have enough money so I can insulate myself from any of the miseries of material life? And isn't that a better idea? What do you think?
I know it's not a better idea, because even if you get what Prabhupada calls as mixed happiness, then it's number one, it's mixed, and then it's going to come to an end. And you could be trying to pursue happiness and going up and down the various planetary systems, and you'll just continue to do the Brahman like that, going like in a Ferris wheel, and so it's not a good idea at all. And then also happiness and the misery will come on their own accord, no matter how hard you try to avoid each one of them.
Well, how is it that there's wealth in performing tapasya? What is the wealth of tapasya? Isn't it just a bunch of trouble and misery?
No, you get sense control out of tapasya.
Sense control. Who needs that? Don't I want to be unsense controlled? Don't I want to be like the Rolling Stones and just do whatever I want?
When we start doing whatever we want, we actually start serving our senses, and they are very bad masters.
It seems like some people are really happy doing that.
Well, it's a short-lived happiness, and it's an illusion. We might think it's happiness, but it's in the end.
That's what you guys say, because you're a bunch of religious fanatics. But I want to enjoy life. Kurnath?
We should value truth and wisdom over comfort. That we don't want to be in illusion. To live a life of material comfort is a kind of intoxication or illusion that makes you think, yeah, I'm okay, I'm not going to die, I am this body. But all of that is actually wrong. It's not clear. So we should value real understanding. Who am I? Why am I suffering? Even though you may try to be very comfortable, you're still going to suffer and die. So some people...
Still, I don't understand. What do I get out of tapasya?
An example from my own life is that my mother was beautiful, and she had all the money in the world, and she had all the comforts in the world, but still she was not a happy person. She was very unhappy and became a severe alcoholic and died at a young age. So we learn as we go on in life that these comforts, so-called comforts, and these opulences cannot bring us real happiness. And the tapasya, which we perform, like getting up early, chanting our japa, going to the temple, fasting, it helps us to really open the heart so that we can actually feel that love that we're searching for, the real love.
What is it about tapasya? What's in it? What's in tapasya?
Two things that are coming to my mind is, one, it brings detachment from the material world and pleasures. And then second thing, with tapasya or penance, you can attract Krishna's attention and please him.
Okay. Let's hear some Shastric proofs for all this stuff. What's in tapasya? Specifically, what's in tapasya? According to Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita, what's in tapasya?
In the Brahma Samhita, Krishna tells tapastvam tap etena tav siddhir bhavishyati. Just by performing this tapasya, you'll get all the perfection in your life.
Okay, you'll get perfection, and what's in it?
That is the aim of the life, to get perfection.
What's in tapasya? According to the Bhagavad Gita. Who's in tapasya? Where does it say that in the Bhagavad Gita? He's eternally situated in acts of sacrifice. Tapasya. Yes? He needs a microphone. It's called spontaneous devotional service.
So Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita that the all-pervading transcendence is eternally situated in the acts of sacrifice.
Yes. We have an attorney in here who's disputing the fact that tapasya and sacrifice are the same thing. What verse is that? Ramananda? Okay, let's look it up. If somebody look up the verse, please. And if you'd like to text or a question or a comment, please text it to 650-245-7018. And also the lines are open. If you're online and you'd like to speak a question or a comment, you're welcome to do so. Okay. Verse number, please. Okay. Karman brahmodbhavam vidhi brahmakshara samudbhavam tasmat sarvagatam brahma nityam jagne pratishtitam. Regulated activities are prescribed in the Vedas, and the Vedas are directly manifested from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Consequently, the all-pervading transcendence is eternally situated in acts of sacrifice. Purport: Jagnartha karma, or the necessity of work for the satisfaction of Krishna only, is more expressly stated in this verse. If we have to work for the satisfaction of the Yajna Purush, Vishnu, then we must find out the direction of work in Brahman or in Transcendental Vedas. The Vedas are therefore codes of working directions. Anything performed without the direction of Vedas is called vikarma, or unauthorized or sinful work. Therefore, one should always take direction from the Vedas to be saved from the reaction of work. As one has to work in ordinary life by the direction of the state, one similarly has to work under the direction of the supreme state of the Lord. Such directions in the Vedas are directly manifested from the breathing of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It is said, Asya mahato bhutasya nishvasitam etad yad rigvedo yajurveda samavedo tarvan girashaha. The four Vedas, namely the Rig Veda, Yajurveda, Samaveda, and Atharva Veda, are all emanations from the breathing of the great personality of Godhead. That's from the Brihat Aranyaka Upanishad. From which Upanishad? The Lord, being omnipotent, can speak by breathing air, for as it is confirmed in the Brahma Samhita, the Lord has the omnipotence to perform through each of his senses the actions of all the other senses. In other words, the Lord can speak through his breathing, and he can impregnate by his eyes. In fact, it is said that he glanced over material nature and thus fathered all living entities. After creating or impregnating the conditioned souls into the womb of material nature, he gave his directions in the Vedic wisdom as to how such conditioned souls can return home back to Godhead. We should always remember that the conditioned souls in material nature are all eager for material enjoyment, but the Vedic directions are so made that one can satisfy one's perverted desires, then return back to Godhead, having finished his so-called enjoyment. It is a chance for the conditioned souls to attain liberation. Therefore, the conditioned souls must try to follow the process of yajna by becoming Krishna conscious. Even those who have not followed the Vedic injunctions may adopt the principles of Krishna consciousness and that will take the place of the performance of Vedic yagyas or karmas. And so in the verse, Nityam Jagne Pratishtitam, Krishna says that the supreme transcendence is eternally situated in acts of sacrifice. Karnath Prabhu.
I have another evidence about austerity.
Yes, more evidence. Bring it on.
Tapas chasmi tapasvishu.
Tapas chasmi tapasvishu.
Krishna says in the 7th chapter, I am the tapas of all the ascetics.
Nice. Krishna is tapasya. And what about in the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, 2nd chapter? Anything there? Vasudeva Paraveda. Yeah. Vasudeva Param Tapaha. Vasudeva is tapasya.
And in the 18th chapter,
Is to be attained by tapasya, yes.
Acts of sacrifice, charity, and tapasya should never be given up. Even they purify even the great souls.
So one of the great discoveries of life for those on the spiritual path is that there's tapasya for Krishna is pregnant with something, and that is Krishna. Krishna is there within the tapasya. So if you perform tapasya for Krishna, kurvan nirantaram karma loko yam manavartate tenaiva karmana dhyayam mam param bhaktamichiti yat karoshi yat ashnashi yat johasi dadasi yat tapasyasi konteya tat kurushva mararpadam. All that you do, all that you eat, all that you offer and give away, as well as austerities, all austerities you perform should be done for me. And that's the way to stay eternally connected to Krishna, according to the Brahma Samhita. Kurvan nirantaram karma. Everyone's doing some work, Krishna says. And if you connect that work to me, by remembering me, by thinking of me, then you'll come to me. And also we find in the 12th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says that you should do the tapasya of giving charity. If you can't meditate on me, if you can't practice the rules and regulations of devotional service, if you can't give your money to the devotees, then at least be charitable. Just give away somewhere to some worthy cause, because that begins the process of giving, which is a kind of tapasya, and one grows by that and actually comes to ultimately realize the Supreme.
It's when you're sometimes in the company of materialistic people and everything, when you talk about tapasya or trying to give up the enjoying mentality and actually take some control, sometimes it's like you're like going in the opposite direction. I mean, sometimes they actually feel like, or when you talk about celibacy and you talk about the importance of sense control, it's like you're like a salmon swimming upstream.
That's why we don't talk about it amongst new people or in the wrong. We discussed this on Wednesday night. Yena tena prakarena krishnamana niveshayat. In fact, Rupa Goswami says in the beginning, don't talk about all these rules and regulations and tapasya and so forth. Just teach people the way to fix their minds on Krishna. And in the Gita, Krishna says much the same thing, that don't disturb the minds of the ignorant. Just try to engage them in the spirit of devotion. And even in this section, we just heard that there's a way in which the Vedas accommodate all kinds of people in all kinds of situations. Somebody may be in the mode of ignorance, but there's a Vedic ritual that they can perform where they even think, in fact, the elevationists that are described, the karmakandis, they're performing rules and regulations in the Vedas for the sake of getting something. They want something out of it. They realize, I get it, there's a system here in the universe. And if I follow the system, I'll get what I want. I want happiness, I want heavenly planets, so I'm going to perform these rituals and sacrifice something to get it. And one of the offenses against the holy name is the blaspheming the Vedic literatures, or literatures in pursuance of the Vedic version. So someone begins devotional service and they read about these karmakandis, and then they say, well, then the Vedas, they're not very good because they're recommending this kind of material enjoyment. No, that's an offense, because actually that's meant for a certain type of person. When they perform those rituals and they get the result, then they get faith in the Vedas. Or if they get faith in some particular demigod, then at least they start to have faith in the Shastras. And from there, gradually, there's a progressive path towards developing faith in the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And there are gradations of people in various types of consciousness that Rupa Goswami mentions in the Nectar of Instruction. Karmi bhya parito hare, karmi bhyo parito hare priyatayast. I can't remember now. We'll have to look at it. Jnaninas tebhyo jnana vimukta bhakti parama premaika nishtastata. He says that in the Shastra it is said, of all types of fruit of workers, he who is advanced in knowledge of the higher values of life is favored by the Supreme Lord Hari. Out of many such people who are advanced in knowledge, Jnanis, one who is practically liberated, by virtue of his knowledge may take to devotional service. He is superior to the others. However, one who has actually attained prema, pure love of Krishna, is superior to him. The gopis are exalted above all the advanced devotees because they are always totally dependent upon Sri Krishna, the transcendental cowherd boy. Among the gopis, Srimati Radharani is the most dear to Krishna. Her Kund lake is as profoundly dear to Lord Krishna as this most beloved of the gopis. Who then will not reside at Radha Kund and in a spiritual body surcharged with ecstatic devotional feelings, aprakrita bhava, render loving service to the divine couple Sri Krishna, Sri Sri Radha Govinda, who perform their Ashtaka Lila Lila, their eternal eightfold daily pastimes. Indeed, those who execute devotional service on the banks of the Radha Kund are the most fortunate people in the universe. So, in the purport, Prabhupada describes how the karmis are dear to Krishna because they follow the Vedic rules and regulations. They perform some sacrifice according to the regulations of the Vedas, and therefore they gradually become elevated. And if you have a question or a comment you'd like to text in, the number is 650-245-7018.
I had a quick question.
Yes.
There is repeatedly a mention of the nobility of charity done anonymously. Could you comment on that?
Well, I mentioned a specific injunction given by Krishna in the 12th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. And in this section of the Gita called Devotional Service, Krishna says that you should think of me always, just meditate on me. This is the highest position. And just in loving service, remember me always and engage in my service. And if you can't do that, then follow the rules and regulations of devotional service to come to that stage. If you can't do that, he says, then give your money to help spread Krishna consciousness. And for some reason, if you can't do that because of social restrictions or another reason, then just be charitably disposed. And then after that, he says, if you can't do that, engage in meditation or and also be knowledge, cultivate knowledge, and be detached from the fruits of result, be self-sufficient. This is a progression of ways in which somebody people at various stages of their development can catch on to the spirit of devotional service. So the idea behind giving charity is that if at least one is charitably disposed, then one opens oneself to the idea that when you give what you have, then you grow. Misers make a lot of money. They may or they may not make money, but I'm just giving an example of one miser. He makes a lot of money, and he doesn't spend it on himself, and he doesn't spend it on anybody else, but he looks at it all the time. this was the case with the Avanti Brahmana. Before he became a great sage, he was a very miserly person. He had great wealth, but he didn't spend it on himself, and he didn't spend it on anybody else. He just looked at it. And so he was a miser. And that shrinks the heart. And actually, everyone renounced him. His family members renounced him, and the demigods renounced him also. Because he didn't even want to spend on them. He didn't want to even do sacrifice to please the demigods or anybody else. He didn't want to give anything in charity. He just kept it all. This is the miserly mentality. Oftentimes, you see it in animals. They just take it for themselves. They'll snatch it off somebody else's plate and say, that's mine, And they don't think about it. So this giving in charity represents the opening of the consciousness, opening of the heart. You're giving. At the same time, there's a way in which misguided philanthropy can be dangerous. Because, well, I'll just give you an example. Prabhupada told a story to illustrate what misguided philanthropy means. That in his neighborhood, he saw some parents severely chastising one of their children. And then, as in any neighborhood, the word gets around, what happened down there? And so what had happened was there were two boys in the family, and one of them had cholera. And the parents were called out on an emergency, and they told the elder son, you take care of your brother and make sure he doesn't eat any solid food, because if he does, he might die. And while the parents were out for a very short amount of time attending to an emergency, the young boy said, if I could just have some samosa or cake. And the elder brother thought, well, he wants cake and samosa. He's asking for it. So I know my parents said not to, but, this is a good idea. So he gave it to him. And the son, his brother almost died. And when the parents came home and found out that he had given solid food, they became so angry they beat him. So one might think that one is doing good by giving charity in many different ways. There's a term that Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur gave for this, something like malevolent philanthropy, in which you think that you're doing good for people, but you're actually harming them. So it's a double-edged sword. We have to be careful also, especially when we're refining our tapasya and our sacrifice, to realize that indiscriminate charity in the beginning for someone who's not very advanced may be a good thing, but later on we should direct it. Akurnath Prabhu?
In the 17th chapter, Krishna does talk about charity in the modes of goodness, passion, and ignorance. And he says that to give charity in the mode of goodness, you have to give to a suitable person at a suitable time and place without any expectation of reward. And that people in the mode of passion, they'll give charity, but they want to be honored for it, and they want to get something back for it. And
so on a parikram with Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, there were some beggars asking for money, and some of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta's householder disciples just walked by them. But Srila Bhaktisiddhanta told them, no, as householders you should give. You should give that charity, otherwise your heart will become hard-hearted. At the same time, he was very outspoken about doing things like just building hospitals for the sake of helping the sick, because it's not something that will do permanent benefit for people. So one has to use some intelligence and discrimination. Of course, following the injunctions of Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita, understanding what is proper charity and what are charities in various modes and so forth is important. Yes.
So Maharaj, as a follow-up to her question on giving charity in incognito, another thought that comes to my mind is that sometimes you might give charity with your name attached to it just to encourage other people to also engage in that task. For example, I know that Bill Gates does a lot of charity. People don't hear much about Larry Ellison giving charity, but he does do a lot of charity. Larry Ellison, the Oracle CEO.
Larry Ellison.
Well, how do you know that?
Yeah, through some inner,
I
close
see.
people
All
that
right.
he does a lot of that, but he doesn't. But he doesn't announce
advertise
that.
it.
But then, like people like Bill Gates who gave huge, many millions of dollars in charity, they are encouraging other people, like that you hear that Bill Gates gave 1 million, so come on, let me give 100 today, like that. So
what's the point?
So I was just saying, like, charity. Her question was comments on charity incognito, giving charity with anonymously.
Anonymous charity.
Yeah.
Well, I guess it was important, first of all, to talk about, what are the benefits of charity and what, in various modes of nature, and what is transcendental charity and so forth. And then anything done anonymously, ultimately nothing's anonymous because Krishna's watching. And that's often, we talked about this the other night in class about not having to take credit for what we're doing in anything that we do. If there's a way in which I have to attach my name to everything and be certain that everyone knows that I did it, I may, first of all, slow down the process of whatever I'm doing. And also, I may be doing it for other reasons besides just pleasing Krishna. But there's a way in which if I do something anonymously, that I'm understanding that I'm doing it for Krishna and he witnesses, whatever I'm doing. And it may not even be doing it, there are different motivations. One in the mode of goodness is doing out of duty. Out of mode of passion means I want something in return. In the mode of ignorance, I'm trying to do some damage or it's ill-motivated in the first place. And transcendence, giving is out of love. That's the highest motivation. I'm giving out of love, just because I want to. And when someone gives out of love, practically it's impossible to reciprocate. And Krishna says in the Gita, Ye yata mam prapadyante tamstataiva bhajamyaham. That as people surrender to me, I reward them accordingly. But when his most intimate devotees gave their hearts to him, he said, I can't repay you. That verse I said in the Bhagavad Gita, forget about it. I can't. There's nothing I can do to repay you, because you'll have to be satisfied with your own good deeds. Because when someone gives you something out of love, with no motivation, no expectation in return, you feel so grateful. And practically it's impossible to reciprocate that. Kanka.
I was told that the Gaudiya Vaishnavas have 5 regulative principles. And when Srila Prabhupada came to America, his godbrothers asked him why he didn't institute the 5th, which is not to hoard. And he said, I didn't need to. He said, as soon as I came, they gave everything.
Well, maybe we could reinstitute it now.
I have one more question. So my question is about tapasya. Should we understand that anything that we do for Krishna is tapasya, or is tapasya something that puts you through, makes you go through a little bit of, trouble or pain?
Well, our tapasya is to please Krishna. And in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna gives this basic direction for everybody. Yat karoshi yat ashnashi yat johosi dadasi yat tapasyasi konteya tat kurushva manarpanam. That whatever you do, whatever you're doing now, just do it for me. This is kind of a low level of dedication, because you do what you want and then, connect it to me somehow. But there's a higher level, which is that you find out what Krishna wants and then you do that. And that's real tapasya. And the kind of austerities that we do as devotees are in that realm. It's not actually tapasya. It's actually happiness for the devotee, because, for instance, fasting on Ekadashi day, we don't fast for political purposes. We don't fast for health. Some people fast because it's really good for you, That is a kind of fasting in the mode of passion, or maybe tinged with goodness. But fasting on Ekadashi to honor Mother Ekadashi and to remember Krishna all day, that's transcendental. It's connected to devotional service. We do it because it's pleasing to Krishna. Lord Chaitanya told his mother, do one thing. You just honor Ekadashi, Ekadashi day. You fast on Ekadashi. So all the Vaishnavas say, Lord Chaitanya wants us to fast on Ekadashi. Let's fast on Ekadashi. And there are ways to observe Ekadashi so that you can remember Krishna all day. And in the Hari Bhakti Vilas, there are lots of rules and regulations for fasting on Ekadashi, in which you fast, you stay up all night, and so forth, because you can increase your hearing and chanting. And waking up early in the morning and going to the Dham and all these kinds of things, these are the kinds of tapasya we perform, and there are ways that we stay in contact with Krishna, and by doing so, we stimulate our natural love for Krishna and awaken love. Yes. If you need to text in or call in, text in, it's 650-245-7018. Yeah.
I just wanted to see what you think, because one of the things I'd heard, it's important to, when you do charity, you do it in the sense of gratitude. Even when you're giving to somebody else, you should have the gratitude, because there's a story of Rahima, who was very, very giving, and he would just sit in front of his house. He had a lot of money, and he'd just give to whoever be passing by. So Kabir wrote on his behalf that, what a giver, everybody needs to be thankful to him. So Rahim came back and said, actually, I'm the one who needs to be thankful. Firstly, I'm receiving from a higher power. Secondly, somebody else is receiving from me. So the person who's giving, who's doing charity, is the one who has to be most grateful. So it has to be done in the spirit of charity rather than gratitude rather than arrogance. I was just wanted to...
Attitude's important. That's mentioned in the 17th chapter of the Bhagavad, in the 18th chapter, 17th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, about charity in different modes, and it's according to one's attitude is important too. If someone's giving begrudgingly or expecting something in return, then these are modes of passion and ignorance, respectively. And then out of duty, that's the mood. And then, of course, it's not easy. You can't always give. Some people don't take. One time, I tried to give some old clothes to the homeless people in San Francisco. Some astrologer told me to give your old clothes to the homeless people. And so I went down. I just happened to have some old jackets, and I went up to him and I said, "Here, get out of here." And they didn't want a jacket; they wanted money. And I remember also when we flew to India, I think for the first time we chartered a jet. We all flew over. We got off at Dum Dum Airport in Calcutta, and we took a bus to Mayapur, and we were stopped at a railroad crossing, and a so-called sadhu came up to the window and was begging. I was sitting next to my friend Divyanga, and we still had some chapatis that the devotees had given us at the Heathrow Airport when we stopped over. So I thought, sadhu, chapati, makes sense, here. So I gave him chapati, and all of a sudden it came flying back in the window and hit me in the head. And my friend Divyanga laughed all the way to Mayapur. And is still laughing to this day that I got hit in the head with the charity that I gave. So, also on one Vyasa Puja day for Srila Prabhupada, I remember Acharya Chandra Prabhu made this very interesting point about how it's not easy to give. I mean, there have been people who have gone out to give spiritual knowledge to people all over the world, but not everyone wants to take it. That's why there were the Inquisitions. There was the Inquisition, and there were other kinds of campaigns where they said, take it or die, Or there's lots of cases where they pay people. They say, tell you what, if you want to convert to being a Christian, then all you have to do is, we'll set you up here with a house. And I was just in South India, and there's lots of Christians, and the devotees were telling me, yeah, they pay poor people to become Christians, and they set them up in a new life and all this kind of stuff. And so there are... you had a point?
I just had a question about why did the astrologer ask you to give clothes?
I think that he said that I should feed blackbirds. It was a major Saturn period I was in, and there were blackbirds, Shani, and there were blackbirds, and he said, if you have any black articles, clothing, give them away to the poor, stuff like that. I just did it out of a curiosity because they were sitting there anyway, and I thought, I didn't feed any blackbirds though. Yeah.
The reason I was asking was that there is a person at my work who's going through a very bad patch in life, and he has been consulting an astrologer.
Yeah, I don't recommend it.
And that's what we were discussing last night. That should we recommend or not? So
not so much.
Curious. Okay.
Not so much. Just we direct them to chant Hare Krishna.
Malati was telling a story one time that when they were first in India and the children would come up to the car to ask for something, Srila Prabhupada would tell the devotees, give them some coins, give them something.
Yeah, I just got a letter this morning from Leela Padma, and she said Halle was her first time in India. So she was describing how she was going around Vrindavan with her, and she said, Halle, who's become my best friend here in Vrindavan, she's going around with a big bag of coins, giving them out everywhere. So now I'm coming to another point, which is that the austerity that was received by Brahma, and we hear in the Bhagavatam, he heard these words, tapa. And in the Brahma Samhita, tapas tam tapa etena tava siddhir bhavishyati, divine Saraswati, who's not the Saraswati who's the wife of Brahma, but is actually one of the Shaktis, the primal Shaktis of Lord Vishnu, approached Brahma and said, take this mantra, Uvacha purutas tasmai tasya divya Saraswati kama krishnaya govinda he gopi jana ityapi balabhaya priyavanir mantraste dasati priyam. That she came and she said, I'm going to give you a mantra, and you practice this mantra and you'll attain all perfection. This was his tapasya. So he received from Goddess Saraswati this mantra, the Krishna mantra, the Gopal mantra, that has the cling, as the opening seed, the Kama Bij. So within that mantra, and by practice, is all perfection. All perfection is there by practicing that tapasya. So this is the same instruction that we're getting, and we're taking the same kind of initiation. That just as Brahma received this mantra and he chanted the mantra, then he heard the flute song of Krishna. It was revealed to him in the form of the Gayatri mantra. So Gayatri means the song that delivers you from the material life, Gayatri. So tri means trayate, means to deliver, and Gaya means song. So it's a certain meter and combination of syllables that when you hear it, it's a formula, a spiritual formula, and it awakens your spiritual knowledge. And that by practicing those mantras, Brahma realized the Kama Gayatri. And the Kama Gayatri is Krishna. It's 24 and a half syllables, and it's actually a description of the transcendental body of Krishna, and it's a direct meditation on him. So this is Anavriti Shabdat. By practicing this, Brahma came to this perfectional stage of seeing the spiritual world. And this is the same kind of process that we are engaged in devotional service. And I'm going to read something from the Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Lila 8.138. And the translation is, in the spiritual realm of Vrindavan, Krishna is the spiritual ever-fresh Cupid. He is worshipped by the chanting of the Kama Gayatri mantra with the spiritual seed cling. Purport, Vrindavan is described in the Brahma Samhita in this way. Sriya Kanta Kanta Parama Purusha Kalpataravo Durma bhumish chintamani ganamayi toyamamritam kataganam natyam gamanamapi vamshi priyasaki Chidanandam jyoti paramapi tada swadyam apicha Sayatra shiradbhi sravati surabhibhyash jasumahan Nimeshardhyakyo va vrajati nahi yatrapi samayaha Bhaje shweta dvipam tamaham yaha golokamitiyam Vidantaste santa shiti virala chara katipaye. The spiritual realm of Vrindavan is always spiritual. The goddess of fortune and the gopis are always present there. They are Krishna's beloveds, and all of them are as spiritual as Krishna. In Vrindavan, Krishna is the supreme person and is the husband of all the gopis of the goddess of fortune. The trees in Vrindavan are wish-fulfilling trees. The land is made of touchstone and the water is nectar. Words are musical vibrations and all movements are dancing. The flute is the Lord's constant companion. The planet Goloka Vrindavan is self-luminous like the sun and is full of spiritual bliss. The perfection of life lies in tasting that spiritual existence. Therefore, everyone should cultivate its knowledge. In Vrindavan, spiritual cows are always supplying spiritual milk. Not a single moment is wasted there. In other words, there is no past, present, or future. Not a single particle of time is wasted. Within this material universe, the devotees worship that transcendental abode as Goloka Vrindavan. Lord Brahma himself said, "Let me worship that spiritual land where Krishna is present." This transcendental Vrindavan is not appreciated by those who are not devotees or self-realized souls, because this Vrindavan Dham is all spiritual. The pastimes of the Lord there are also spiritual. None are material. According to a prayer by Srila Narottam Das Thakur, Ar kabe nitai chandera karuna karibe, Shangsharabhasana mor kabe tucha habe. When will Lord Nityananda have mercy upon me so that I can realize the uselessness of material pleasure? Vishaya chariya kabe shuddha habe mon, kabe hama heriba, Sri Vrindavan. When will my mind be cleansed of all material dirt so that I will be able to feel the presence of spiritual Vrindavan? Rupa Raghunath Pade Hoibe Akuti Kabe Homo Bujaba She Jugala Piriti. When will I be attracted to the instructions of the Goswamis so that I will be able to understand what is Radha and Krishna and what is Vrindavan? These verses indicate that one first has to be purified of all material desires and all attraction for fruit of activity and speculative knowledge if one wishes to understand Vrindavan. In the reference to the words aprakrita navina madana, aprakrita refers to that which is the very opposite of the material conception. The Mayavadis consider this to be zero or impersonal. But this is not the case. Everything in the material world is dull, but in the spiritual world everything is alive. The desire for enjoyment is present both in Krishna and in his parts and parcels, the living entities. In the spiritual world, such desires are also spiritual. No one should mistakenly consider such desires to be material. In the material world, if one is sexually inclined and enjoys sex life, he enjoys something temporary. His enjoyment vanishes after a few minutes. However, in the spiritual world, the same enjoyment may be there, but it never vanishes. It is continuously enjoyed. In the spiritual world, such sex pleasure appears to the enjoyer to be more and more relishable with each new feature. In the material world, however, sex enjoyment becomes distasteful after a few minutes only and is never permanent. Because Krishna appears very much sexually inclined, he is called the new Cupid in the spiritual world. There is no material inebriety in such desire, however. Gayantam trayate yasmad Gayatri tvam tata smrita. One who chants the Gayatri mantra is gradually delivered from material clutches. In other words, that which delivers one from the material entanglement is called Gayatri. An explanation of the Gayatri mantra can be found in the Madhya Lila, chapter 21, text 125. Kama Gayatri mantra rup. Hoy Krishnera Swarup, Sardha Chabisha Akshara Tar Hoy, She Akshara Chandra Hoy, Krishne Kari Udhoy, Tri Jagat Koila Kamamoy. The Kama Gayatri mantra is just like a Vedic hymn, but it is the Supreme Personality of Godhead Himself. There's no difference between the Kama Gayatri and Krishna. Both are composed of 24.5 transcendental syllables. The mantra depicted in letters is also Krishna, and the mantra rises just like the moon. Due to this, there is a perverted reflection of desire in human society and among all kinds of living entities. In the mantra, Klim Kama Devaya Vidmahe Pushpabanaya Dimahi Tanno Nanga Prachodayat, Krishna is called Kamadev, Pushpabana, and Ananga. Kamadev is Madan Mohan, the deity who establishes our relationship with Krishna. Pushpabana, he who carries an arrow made of flowers, is Govinda, the personality of Godhead, who accepts our devotional service. And Ananga is Gopi Janabalaba, who satisfies all the gopis and is the ultimate goal of life. This Kama Gayatri, Klim Kama Devaya Vidmahe Pushpabanaya Dimahi Tanno Nanga Prachodayat, simply does not belong to this material world. When one is advanced in spiritual understanding, he can worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead with his spiritually purified senses and fulfill the desires of the Lord. Manmana bhavamad bhakto madhyaji mam namaskuru, mami vaishyasi satyam te pratijani priyosi me. Always think of me and become my devotee, worship me and offer your homage unto me. Thus you will come to me without fail. I promise you this because you are my very dear friend. In Brahma Samhita it is said, Atavenu nanadasya traimurti mayigati, spuranti praviveshashu mukabjani swayambhuvaha, gayatrim gayatas tasmad adigatya sarojaja, samskritash chadi gununa dvijatam agamattata, Traya prabhuto ta vidhir vigna tat vasagara tushtava vedasarena stotrinanena keshavam. Then Gayatri, mother of the Vedas, having been manifested by the divine sound of Sri Krishna's flute, entered the lotus mouth of Brahma, the self-born, through his 8 ear holes. Thus the lotus-born Brahma received the Gayatri mantra, which had sprung from the song of Sri Krishna's flute. In this way he attained twice-born status, having been initiated by the supreme primal perceptor, Godhead Himself. Enlightened by the recollection of that Gayatri, which embodies the 3 Vedas, Brahma became acquainted with the expanse of the ocean of truth. Then he worshipped Sri Krishna, the essence of all Vedas, with a hymn. Unquote. The vibration of Krishna's flute is the origin of Vedic hymns. Lord Brahma, who is seated on a lotus flower, heard the vibration of Krishna's flute and was thereby initiated by the Gayatri mantra. There you have it. So, anavriti shabdat. By the power of transcendental sound, says the Vedanta Sutra, one doesn't come back to the material world, but attains liberation. Narendra. And if you were texting in a question or a comment, it's 650-245-7018. Also, the phone lines are open, so you can call in and speak up at any time.
What my understanding so far has been that Gayatri Mantra is for the knowledge, it's not for bhakti. And I want to be clear about it, maybe completely wrong so far.
The Brahma Gayatri Mantra.
Yes.
Om
Bhur Bhavaha Swa.
Yeah, it depends. Vedanti, according to Srimad Bhagavatam, Vedanti tat vavidas tattvam yajnanamad vayam brahmeti paramatmeti bhagavaniti shabdite. The Supreme Absolute Truth is Advaya Gyan Tattva. It's one absolute truth, but it's understood in 3 different features: Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. And how is it understood? According to one's approach. If one approaches the Supreme through Gyan, he understands the impersonal aspect. And through yoga, through meditation, he'll be able to understand the localized aspect of Krishna, the Paramatma. But through bhakti, one can understand Bhagavan. Itam satam brahma sukhanubhutya dasyam gatanam paradaivatena maya shitanam naradarakena sakam vrijaru krita punya punjaha. This verse comes up in the in the pastime of Aghasura in the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, where Shukadeva Goswami is noting that some people, they worship the impersonal Brahman effulgence of the Lord. Some, they worship the majestic aspect of Krishna as Narayan and Vaikuntha. Others, they consider Krishna to be an ordinary man because they're in Maya. And others, they're playing with Krishna on an equal level as cowherd boys, and they're wrestling with him. And she says, these, sakam vrjaru krita punya punjaha, after attaining heaps and heaps of bhakti and mukhi sukriti, they've been able to have this benefit. So if one, the Brahma Gayatri mantra has been, there are many commentaries on the Brahma Gayatri mantra by various types of people from different perspectives. So somebody is Jnani, he might write about the Brahma Gayatri mantra and say, this is about the impersonal light that comes from the Lord, and so forth. This is about worshipping Narayan in the sun, some will say. But then you see our Vaishnavacharyas have given a commentary on the Brahma Gayatri mantra explaining how it's Radha and Krishna. And Prabhupada mentions this in his purports in the Chaitanya Charitamrita as well. So we see Krishna and we're able to understand the absolute truth according to our state of heart and our consciousness. And that's due to our association and the process that we're following. So you'll find commentaries from the Vaishnavacharyas that explain Brahma Gayatri in a different way.
You're referring to the Om Bhur-Bhuvah Savita. I mean, if you look at the literal meanings, Om is a universal sum, Bhur-Bhuvah Swa, the owner of the earth. So the first few are Om Bhur-Bhuvah Swa Tasavita Varaniyam, the effulgence of the sun, the destroyer of the sins, the divine. So the first almost, I think there are 36 words in it, and of those, almost 26 are in the glorification of the higher power, whatever you want to. So that is the aspect of, acknowledging that higher power. Then it says, Om Bhur-Bhuvah Swa Tasavita Varaniyam, Dhyo na prachodhyasa. Dhyo means I'm going to meditate on you, and you guide my thoughts from here on. So it's I think a beautiful combination of glorification of it's a prayer, it's a meditation, and it's a request. So that's why it's considered to be such a powerful mantra, which guides not only songs but all thoughts and all works of all human beings. That's my understanding when I looked at it in detail. I spent a whole day on it one day.
Thank you for that.
Because I share it with my kids. My kids recite it morning, evening, and then I wanted to tell them what it is about and not just use the words, because the biggest problem is we just recite with the head knowledge. There's no heart knowledge. The heart knowledge cannot come unless you know what it is. So I broke it down to every word, explained to them what every word means and what it is that they're asking when they recite that. It's just not just a mathematical equation. It is a lifestyle change you're asking to that higher power, because you want to meditate on it. You want that power to guide your thoughts, and you acknowledge it because it's everything. And all those first few 20 words are in the glorification of that power. That's what Gayatri Mantra is.
Well, actually, Krishna says in the Gita that I am Om, Omkar. And Omkar itself is Aum, which means Krishna, Radha, the living entity. So that everything's there within the Omkar itself also, but it's a matter of realization. Like a zip file. If you open it, then so many other things come out. You might look at it and say, oh, that's insignificant. But it might have volumes and volumes within it. And mantras are like that, spiritual formula. It opens, but it has to do with your approach. Kanka.
Janavi Devi, the wife of Lord Nityananda, added the Guru mantra and the other lines that we use in the Gaudiya Vaishnava mantra, not just Om Bhur Bhuvaha Swatat, not just the first line.
Yes, so we have a series of mantras, the chief of which is the same mantra that there was in the Gaudiya Vaishnava initiation for Diksha. One accepts a series of mantras, not just the Brahma Gayatri mantra. In fact, previously, Gaudiya Vaishnavas didn't take the Brahma Gayatri mantra because it's considered a Vedic mantra, which is meant for Brahmanas. But Vaishnavism is above Brahmanism. And if one is a Vaishnava, you're automatically a Brahmin. Because of a degradation of the practice in Gaudiya Vaishnavism, and because it was not looked upon in modern society at the time Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur was preaching, he included the Brahma Gayatri mantra so that to show that when one accepted initiation as a Vaishnava, one automatically becomes a Brahmin, no matter what caste one's from. Because typically in the Upanyayanam, the father will give the sacred thread to his son at a certain age and give him the Brahma Gayatri mantra, thus bringing him into the caste of Brahmanism. But we take that mantra and also the sacred thread. That was an innovation by Srila Bhaktisiddhanta also. You know, when we take initiation, we take the Brahman thread. But previously, Vaishnavas didn't do that because they considered that this is a Vedic process, but we're not following that. But Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, to show that within the process of the Vaishnava initiation, Brahmanism is already included, he would give out the sacred thread. Because in society at that time, there was people looked disparagingly upon Vaishnavas. And so to educate people in general, he introduced that.
So Prabhu, in the beginning of the class, you were reading how Brahma got the power to create by chanting mantras. But like in the material world, like if we read in the place, if for example in chemistry you combine hydrogen, oxygen, immediately you get water. So like that, whatever statement is there in material things, you see the result immediately. But for example, at the end of each prayers, it is said that like for Gajendra prayers, if you tell, you'll get residence in spiritual world and all that. But it doesn't seem to happen apparently. Like we are chanting mantras, but we don't get that power that much. At least we don't realize. So I'm just thinking, does it mean that because the Vedas were originally said for the high class brahmanas or people at a very higher level of consciousness, that that's why we are not getting? Or is it that what is lacking that we are not seeing the real effects?
You'll get everything. But ultimately what you can see by practicing the mantra is that you get something that's more unusual or more spectacular than being able to make water by mixing together a few molecules in a test tube. And that is, you get knowledge and detachment from the world. Vasudeve Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojita Janiyat Yashuvairagyam Yanam Cha Yarahaitukam. By practicing devotional service, one gets the concomitants of knowledge and detachment from the world. And Rupa Goswami begins the Nectar of Instruction by saying, Vacho vegam manasakroda vegam jihva vegam udaropasta vegam etan vegam yo vishaheta tira sarvamapimam pritivim nasishyat. That a person who is able to control his or her senses becomes a spiritual master and can accept disciples all over the world. Because the master of the world, the masters of this world are the senses. Everyone thinks I'm free and I'm independent, but we're actually, just like sometimes if and in the old days, a teacher would pull the hair of an unruly student and say, you come with me. And, you're going to the principal's office. I even remember this back in when I was growing up. We can't do it nowadays. But I remember maybe not hair, but I remember the ear thing. And we're being pulled like that all the time. And I'm thinking I'm independent. But someone who takes to the process of chanting Hare Krishna, even from a lowly position, will be able to control his or her senses. This is the greatest achievement in the material world, to become the master of one's senses, because it's very difficult to do. Even we hear stories of great personalities, even yogis and so forth, who try for a long time to attain perfection, and then it's very difficult for them. But we can experience for ourselves, and should experience for ourselves, the dissipation of the lower modes of material nature by practicing the mantra. Tada rajas tamo bhava kama lobhada yaschaye cheta ite anavidam stitam sattve prasidasi. We should see that the rajas and tamas are diminishing, and that we're actually getting a scientific understanding of Krishna. We're able to fix our mind on Krishna and think of Krishna. This is the greatest of all experiments. In fact, sometimes people would ask Prabhupada, expecting him to do magic, because sometimes yogis will perform magic. It's not such a wonderment. There are ways in which, as described in the 11th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, when you are able to focus your consciousness in a certain way on certain elements in the material world, you hook into the power of those elements and those powers in the universe. That's how yogis do it. It's through focus. And they become enamored of those things oftentimes. This is a distraction from actual pure devotional service. In any case, some people develop powers, and they'll go around and show them off and say, here, look at that. And so people would ask Prabhupada sometimes, okay, let's see something. And then Prabhupada would point to his disciples and say, look at these guys. They gave up everything. I mean, they come from the richest country in the world. You guys want to go over there. They're coming over here. They're living in a brahmacharya ashram on a mat on the floor, and I'm not paying them a dime. That's magic. Because everyone wants something in this world, but these people don't want anything. They're getting something. They actually control their senses, and they're experiencing scientifically that they're feeling happy. And so that's the greatest magic that we should be looking for, and we're hearing about it. The process is clearly defined. It's through transcendental sound. We receive the mantra through disciplic succession, and we also purify the mantra, Lord Krishna tells Uddhava, by hearing about it. When you study the mantra, just like even today, talking about the Gayatri mantra, hearing your description of how you describe it to your kids and so forth, we're hearing about these things, and doesn't it make you want to go back and chant your Gayatri mantra with more concentration? Or if you don't have the Gayatri mantra yet, doesn't it make you want to find out where to get it? Yes or yes? Yes. Yeah. So, this is hearing and chanting about the mantra and what its efficacy is and so forth. It reinvigorates the mind, because the mind's always searching for some kind of happiness. And we say, it's over here. It's right in here. Just look a little more closely. Brahma got it, and it's available. Kanka.
The other thing that Rupa Goswami would say is patience. And that we have to know that whatever we do, Krishna in time will give us what is good for us. So instead of trying to be the controllers why we're here in this material world, then we have to give that control back to Krishna and say, in due course of time, where scientists may think they're the controllers and can produce this and that and this and that, but really they're not the controllers. And patience is so important in Bhakti Yoga.
Thank you very much. Just one other point about, oftentimes there are benedictions mentioned in the Shastra. And Rupa Goswami says in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu that these are indications of what can happen. They're not indications of what will happen to every single person in all circumstances, in every circumstance. But there are true indications about what can happen when one practices devotional service in a certain way. And the results vary according to one's application. And for instance, in the verses, very famous verses given by Devahuti in the Srimad Bhagavatam, in which she talks about the power of the holy name, and she says that yan namadeha shravanad ukirtanat yat pravanad yat smaranad api kochit shradhopi sadya savanaya kalpate kutak punaste bhagavannu darshanat, and then aho batashra chato garyanya jivagre vartate namatubhyam, etc. In those two verses she talks about the power of the holy name, that how wonderful it is that someone who even just chants a little bit or has a connection with the process of hearing and chanting becomes qualified as a Brahmin, or is already qualified. It's just like if you see a high court judge, you say, oh yeah, he went to law school. You don't think he didn't go, he just got up to the bench. No, he's been through everything. He's gone a long distance to get up there. So someone who can say Hare Krishna, they've come a long way to do that. In the purport, Prabhupada says that he qualifies that. He said someone who chants offenselessly. He's mentioning that the quality of the chanting is important. Srivas Prabhu.
Prabhuji, in many places, as mentioned in Shastras, there are benedictions, and which seem like instantaneous. But there is also the other aspect in the third canto, 27th chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam, when Devahuti asks Lord Kapila that how can the conditioned soul be free from the clutches of material existence? Lord Kapila also gives that one has to hear and chant about me for a very long time, and it can take a few lifetimes also. And so the other aspect is also there in Shastras.
Nice points, and it goes along with Kanka's point about patience, and it's not that even in the beginning you don't get some kind of free sample. Otherwise you wouldn't be here. Everyone's gotten some kind of experience. Narendra, I neglected you. Go ahead.
Here. I want to say a little bit reverse of what she has told. Question right now. Whatever I asked Lord Krishna, I've got it. Say, for example, I don't want to give you many examples, but just to give you one simple example. So far I was eating whatever I wanted to eat. Okay? And then on this 1st of January, you wanted somebody to take vow. So I said, okay, I don't want to take vow myself. I said, I will just pray God. And I said, okay, please control my habit of eating. Here it comes. And he's controlling everywhere. Automatically, because my wife doesn't take baths to cook anything. and he gives me idea. Go and cook yourself. That's it. and control. It just happens just like that. And I've been trying many times. Nothing happens.
So, example of how devotee feels reciprocation when sincerely trying to advance in Krishna consciousness. So we should take the sound vibration very seriously. Within the mantra, all perfection is available. The Hare Krishna mantra is sufficient. All we need is the Hare Krishna mantra. And you can attain all perfection from that mantra, and will attain all perfection from the mantra as you continue to chant. The Gayatri mantra is also helps to purify our material tendencies so that we can chant the Hare Krishna mantra purely, because when we chant the Hare Krishna mantra without offenses and without a material concept, then very quickly it will conflagrate and have its effect in our life and come to the perfectional stage. We'll be able to remember Krishna, and we'll be able to chant Hare Krishna with relish and taste the sweetness of the holy name if we chant without offenses. And in order to accomplish that, the acharyas have recommended that one live a lifestyle regulated by the Panchatriki Vidhi, that is the rules and regulations of the Shastra for daily life as a Vaishnav, including chanting the Gayatri 3 times a day and performing deity worship and coming to the temple and so forth, and following various rules and regulations for what you eat, following ekadashis and all these kinds of things. This lifestyle and chanting the Gayatri mantra will purify our existence so that we'll actually be able to chant the Hare Krishna mantra with a pure heart. Otherwise, it's very difficult in the age of Kali. Nobody's born as a Brahmin. Kalu Shudra Shambhava. In Kali Yuga, everyone's born as a Shudra or lower. So there is a need for purification through Panchatriki regulation and initiation. So we should take that to heart and attain full success by continuing to chant the Hare Krishna mantra and the Gayatri mantras. Om Tat Sat. So we're going to end here because it's now 10 o'clock and there's a big yajna coming up here. Just after Prasadam, we're packing up the temple because we're leaving. We're leaving this place and we're moving over to 1965 Latham Street. Simultaneously, there's painting and doors going up over there, all kinds of construction work going on at a fever pitch, seeing if we can't put everything together. It's always hard to balance leaving and then getting the next place ready. So today, all the devotees who are listening and all the devotees that are here, we're going to have a Maha cleanup and getting rid of all the things that we don't need here at ISV. Some will be giving away. We got a text just came in. From whom? Go ahead.
He's talking about Krishna giving things to us. So for me, Krishna may not give what I want, but he has been giving me what I need the most, and that is devotee association.
So that's also, you can just take a shortcut and tell Krishna, don't give me what I want, give me what I need. In fact, one devotee, I think it's Prithu Maharaj, prays like that. He says that you know better than me. So please just do the needful. Give me whatever I need to come closer to you and pure devotional service. If you're brave enough, then make that prayer and ask Krishna to do as he wishes. What do you think?
Like Queen Kunti. Kunti prayed for calamities again and again.
Well, that's a step further.
So she could remember, because they gave them the opportunity to be with Krishna and always remember.
Well, if you can't go that far, at least say, you know better than me. You do what you wish, Krishna, so that I get purified. That's a big step in devotional service. Gaur Premanande Aribo Vancha Kalpadrubascha Krupasnabevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. We'll put away all of the transcendental books with great care and attention, and then we're going to have a Guru Puja ceremony for Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, the founder Acharya of ISKCON. Hare Krishna.
your turn. You do it. It's your turn.
Solo's coming, we can ask Solo well, I get the bill online. No.
Should I lock this up now? Make sure that those, anybody who doesn't know the words has them. We have car towels. Namaste Mamapi Sachiputam Prastarutam Rupam Prastaradam Avisarim Matsayu Dushama Radha Chikram Girivaram Purarika Manavashanti Rapuriyasya Shaktivaya Shikarum Sri Guru Charana Padma Kevalabha Gati Shatma Bando Mui Savadana Mate Bando Mui Savadana Mate Jahara Prashade Bhai bhavato riyaja. Jahar Share Bhai Bhavato Riyaja. Krishna Prapti Hoy Jaha Hoy Te. Krishna Prapti Hoy Jaha Hoy Te. Guru Mukha Padma Bhakya Shite Te Koriya Aikya. Guru Mukha Padma Bhakya Shite Te Koriya Aikya. Arna Kori Ho Mane Asha. Arna Kori Ho Mane Asha. Shri Guru Charani Rati Eshe Uttama Gati. Shri Guru Charane Rati Eshe Uttama Gati. Je prashare pure sarva asha. Je prashade pure sarva asha. Dandilo je janme janme Prabhu she. Chakudandilo je janme janme Prabhu she. Divya Gyan Hriday Prakashito. Divya Gyan Hriday Prakashito. Prema Bhakti Ja Hoite Abhidya Vinasa Jate. prema bhakti jaha hoite abidya vinasa jate. Dirigaya jahara charito. Dirigaya jahara charito. Shri Guru Karuna Sindhu Adama Janara Bandhu. Shri Guru Karuna Sindhu Adama Janara Bandhu. Lokana Lokera Jivana. Lokanath Lokera Jivana. Ha Prabhu Kora Doya Deha More Pada Chaya. Ha Prabhu Kora Doya Deha More Pada Chaya. Bejash Kushik Tribhuvana. Bejash Kushik Tribhuvana. Ha Prabhu Kora Doya Te Amore Pada Chaya. Ha Prabhu Kora Doya Deha More Pada Chaya. Bejash Kushik Tribhuvana. Bejash Kushik Tribhuvana. De Pari Lolo Sharana. Srila Prabhupada Patita Pavana. Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Sri Mate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine. Vedanta Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatyarishatarine. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Kali kukur kadam Jari chao hai Kali juga pavana Kali bhoy nashana Shri Sachinandana gao hai Gadadhar Madan Nitaye Pranadhan Advaiter Prabhujita Gaura Nimani Vishwambar Srinivashishwar Bhakta Samuha Chitta Chora Nadia Shashadar Mayapurishwar Nam Pravartana Shura Grihi Jana Shikshaka Nyasikula Nayaka Madhavarada Bhavapura Sarvabhauma Shodana Gajapati Tarana Ramananda Poshana Vira Rupananda Vardana Shanatana Palana Haridas Modana Dira Brajadas Bhavana Dushna Mata Shata Kapati Vighatana Kama Shuddha Bhakta Palana Shuksha Gyana Tarana Chala Bhakti Dushana Rama Kali kukur kadan Jari chao hai Kali Juga Pavana Koli Boy Nashana Shri Sachinandana Gao He Hare Yadaya Namah Krishna Yadavaya Namaha Yadavaya Madhavaya Keshavaya Namaha Gopal Govinda Ram Sri Madhusudan Giridhari Gopinath Madan Mohan Shri Chaitanya Nityananda Sri Advaita Sita Hari Guru Vaishnava Bhagavata Gita Shri Rup Sri Sanatan Bhatta Raguna Shri Jiva Gopal Bhatta Das Raguna Hey Chai Gosai Kori Charana Vandan Jaha Hoite Vignanash Apishta Pura E Chai Gosai Jarmui Tarda Tansabara Pararinu Mora Panchagras More Kartal Tandera Charana Shevi Bhakta Saniba Janame janame hoye abilash Hey Chai Gosai Jabe Braje Koilabas Radha Krishna Nitya-lila Koila Prakash Shri Shri Radha Krishna Nitya-lila Koila Prakash Bolo Anande Bolo Hari Bhaja Vrindavan Bolo Anande Bolo Hari Bhaja Vrindavan Shri Guru Vaishnava Padi Mojaviyaman Shri Guru Vaishnava Pad Padma Koreyash Hare Nam Sankirtan Kohe Narotamudar Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Haribo Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna. Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Govinda Jai Jai, Gopala Jai Jai. Govinda Jai Jai, Gopala Jai Jai. Govinda Jai Jai. Radha Ramana Hari, Govinda Jai Jai. Jai Jai, Gopala Jai Jai. Govinda Jai Jai, Gopala Jai Jai. Radha Ramana Hari, Govinda Jai Jai. Radha Ramana Hari, Govinda Jai Jai. Hare, come on now, come on. Radha Gopala Hare. Radha Govinda, Radha Gopala, Radha Gopinatha, Radha Madan Mohan,
Radha Shyama Sundar, Radha Bank Bihari, Radha Vrindavan Chandra.
Quick. Pass them out. Radha Nilamana,
Radha Krishna,
Radha Landanishwara,
Radha Vandanishwara,
Radha Kunja Vihari,
Radha Kunja Vihari,
Radha Kishore Chora. Radha Radhika Raman,
Radha Radhika Ramana,
Rukmini Dwarkadhisha,
Rukmini Dwarkadish,
Radha Radhanatha, Radha Gokulananda,
Radha Gokulananda,
Radha Ramana,
Radha Ramana,
Radha Parthasarthi,
Parthasarthi,
Radha Rasabihari,
Radha Rasabihari,
Radha Raja Sundara,
Sundara,
Radha Landanishwara,
Radha Vandanishwara,
Radha Natabara,
Radha Sham Sundar,
Radha Shama Sundar,
Radha Shir Chor Gopinath,
Radha Govardhandari, Gandharvika Giridhari,
Gandharvika Giridhari,
Radha Krishna Raman,
Radha Govinda,
Radha Gopinath, Raja Govinda Gopala Hare, Govinda Gopala Hare. श्री भगवान को मेरे बारंबार प्रणाम है, मेरे बारंबार प्रणाम। आशीष ज्ञान श्याम को मेरे बारंबार प्रणाम है, मेरे बारंबार प्रणाम है। Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivraja Gacharya Stotaras Shishimara Pacharana Ravinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivraja Gacharya Stotaras Shishiman Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Ki, Ananta Koti Vaishnavinda Ki, Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki, Prem Gaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasati Gaur Bhakta Ki, Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gokopina Sham Kund Radhakund Giri Govardhan Ki, Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki, Shri Mayapur Navadip Dham Ki, Tulsi Devi Bhakti Devi Ki, Jamuna Devi Ganga Devi Ki, Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda Ki. All glories to some devotees. All glories to some devotees. All glories to some devotees. Gope Manande Haribo. So I read one article. This is too loud. I read one article that Jai Shri Shri Radha Madan Mohan Ji Ki Jai. That there was an effect from the Million Man March about the Jamuna River, because people were stealing the water from the Jamuna. It was being diverted into Delhi and other places for certain kinds of profit agriculture. So none of the water coming to Vrindavan Dham anymore was actually the original water of the Jamuna. Plus they were throwing all kinds of pollutants into the water. So the water was coming through Vrindavan is actually dangerous. people died from drinking it. So there's been a huge protest led by the devotees in Varshana. And I read an article the other day on the ISKCON News that there was, actually it was from something published in India, in Delhi, about how the government has relented and agreed to start putting the Jamuna water back and to clear up the pollution problem, that no more dumping into the Jamuna. Of course, we'll believe it when we see it, and until then, we're going to keep the pressure on. But it's a really good idea, because it's a disgrace how the government treats the holy Dhams. It's an absolute national disgrace. It's an international disgrace, and they should really hear about it. Politicians should be held accountable for keeping these holy Dhams in a pristine state and doing everything they can, pouring funds, whatever they have to do to make them free of pollution and convenient, beautiful places to go for people from all over the world. Otherwise, people who come there and see that they're befouled by all kinds of pollution and sewage and things like that become disgusted. And we want to promote the holy Dham. Just as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu asked Rupa and Sanatan Goswami to go in and reveal the Dham, we're going all over the world teaching people, come to Vrindavan, come to Vrindavan. And then you have these government people who are polluting the river, taking the river water away, and ruining the Dham, but through industry and so many kinds of regulations. We're against this, totally against it, and we should speak up about it. And we'd like to welcome anybody who's in here for the first time. Anybody new to ISV, just arriving? Yes, thank you. Please introduce yourself.
Hey, this is Kanda Kumar.
Welcome.
I'm Shantala. We are from India.
From India?
Yeah.
Which part?
South India. It's Tamil Nadu.
We like Tamil Nadu too much. And
Thank you.
Is this one of the four Kumaras?
He's Shravan.
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 Haribo, Shravan. Haribo. Say Haribo, Shravan. Say Haribo. Come on. Say something or no prasadam. We want entertainment. Hari Hari. Okay, that's good enough. We'll feed you now. We can feed you now. That's all right. And today is Maha Cleanup, and we're going to be dispensing with things that we don't need. This is a great chance to get in the mood of throwing away all anarthas. This is one of the great pastimes of the Lord, cleaning the temple. And it's a joyous occasion because we're preparing to move to our new location. It's a great victory, actually, not just for ISV, but for ISKCON. People from all over the world are enlivened to see that a new temple is opening up here at ISKCON Silicon Valley. As we can all see, it's not an easy thing. It's not that you just go out and find a place, write a check, and it's all over. But it takes the time and energy of devotees over a long period of time. You have to have actually an interest in it, and not many people are interested. There's lots of interest in Oracle and IBM and Apple and things like that because it's making money. But these temples, people don't realize that actually this is their real wealth. And therefore we have to create the market. We're going and telling people this is the place to come. And it's not just to ask for material benediction, which is actually putting the burden back on your head, but it's actually asking for pure devotional service. So Hansapriya has just appeared in the hallway, so that means there's some definite instructions coming about the way the day is going to go for cleanup.
We are very excited to have every devotee today. And we really look forward to spending a day with you. And we're going to have a lot of fun. We're going to clean it up. And it feels good to clean up our heart as well. And we guarantee that you will go so much happier and lighter this evening. So if this is the one thing we are definitely guaranteeing. So please stay with us today.
The karma back guarantee, right?
Karma back guarantee. So where's the new temple? The new temple? Where is it? It's in 1965 Latham Street. We're going to want to go very clean. So that's what we're going to be doing today. We're going to cleaning up ourselves and everything that belongs to the Lordship here so we can take everything clean to the new temple.
No hitchhikers coming over. Yeah. Any of the little bugs that live in the building here or think they're coming, they got another they're not coming. You're not coming. You're staying here with Nick. You had some mercy, now that's it. So it's as far as we can offer you. So we're going to have prasadam right here in this charming old building that you'll remember for years. You'll tell your grandkids and everything about. You should have seen where we started before ISV became what it became. Here in Silicon Valley, we started in a little house, and I was there. I was there in that year when we lived in this little building. Yeah, it was right in a parking lot. Yes, it's all just like that. You'll be able to tell the story. So this is a historic event. Any other announcements?
Today's breakfast prasadam is cooked by Vaisesika and Sundar Prabhu.
Really? Is that right? Vishaka Leela and Sundarananda Prabhu have cooked this morning's breakfast prasadam. And Govinda Charan. What a team. Okay. Okay, well we can't wait now for prasadam. Okay, so we'll say this prasadam prayer because this is very relishable to say the prayer before prasadam. I've been noticing that if, like when you're at home or when you're anywhere else, if you say the prayer before you take prasadam, it reminds you that you're honoring the Lord's remnants. It's not just eating, but it's one of the main ways that we become connected to Krishna through prasadam. And for me, it's the happiest time of day. So it's the happiest song. Sharirat Vijajao Jodendriya Tahika Jibe Pele Bishaya Sagore Tarmadye Divayati Loba Moy Sudurmati Take Cheta Katita Shanshare Krishna Bora Doyamoy Gori Bare Jihajay Shaprashadana Dilobai Shayanamrita Pao Radha Krishna Gunagao Premedako Shri Chaitanya Nita Ekadina Shanti Pure Prabhu Advaitera Khare Tui Prabhu Bojane Bosilo Shakori Aswadana Prabhu Bole Bhakta Gana Esha Krishna Aswadilo Hena Shakashwadane Krishna Prema Aise Mane Se Preme Koro Aswadan Jarabudi Parihari Prasada Bojana Kori Hari Hari Bolo Sarvajan Pare Sachi Angane Kabhu Madhavendra Puri Prabhu Prasadana Korena Bojan Kaite Kaite Tara Ailo Prema Sudurba Bole Shuno Sanyasi Ragan Mocha Ganta Pulabadi Dali Dalna Chachari Shachi Mata Gorilo Tara Shuddha Bhakti Hari Bojana Kori Lohari Sudasama Eyanam Vyanjan Jogi Jogi Pai Jaha Boge Ajha Betaha Hari Boli Kao Sabe Bai Krishnera Prasadana Shri Jagat Kori Dhanya Tripurari Nache Jahapai Tripurari Nache Jahapai Mahaprasade Govinde Nama Brahmani Vaishnave Sapapunyavatam Rajan Vishwaso Navajaya Prasade Sarvadukanam Hanirasopajayate Prasana Chetaso Yashu Uriparyavatishtate Bhagavat Shri Mahaprasade Ki Jai Barhapidam Natavaravapu Karnayo Karnikaram Bibradvasa Kanatakapisham Vaijayantim Chamalam Randran Venor Adara Sudaya Purnayan Gopravrindar Vrindaranyam Swapadaramanam Pravishad Gita Kirti Tavakatamritam Tapta Jivanam Kavibiriditam Kalmashapaham Shravana Mangalam Srimadatatam Bhuvigrananti ye Buddhidajana Krishna Kirtana Gananartana Kala Pato Jani Brajita Sadbhakta Valihamsa Chakramadupa Sheni Viharaspadam Karnanandikaladhvanirva Tume Jiva Maru Prangane Chaitanya Dayanide Tavalasa Lila Sudasvarduni Helondunita Kedaya Vishadaya Bronilaramodaya Shamya Shastra Vivadaya Rasadaya Chitta Pitomadaya Shashvad Bhakti Vinodaya Samadaya Madhurya Mardadaya Chaitanya Dayanide Tavadaya. One more time. Shri Chaitanya Dayanide Tavadaya Bhuyara Maundodaya Go Premanande Nitai Goda Hari Bol Hari Bol Hari Bol Nitai Goda Hari Bol. Please come take prasadam. Hari Bol.